In the world of medicine, where every second is the thin line between life and death, only extraordinary minds can stand firm. At the city's top hospital, among countless outstanding doctors, there remained a name whispered like a legend, a genius among geniuses. When seemingly hopeless emergencies continued to arrive, when the operating room was submerged in chaos and despair, he was the only one who could make time seem to stop. People called him the Hand of God. The phrase "Zin Yu Sung, I can still save him," was his confident and determined declaration. But for someone who had just been declared dead to be operated on again was utterly absurd. Who could say otherwise, for Yu Sung was the standard of medical technique. He was a man who could bring the dead back to life, like the hand of God. Once Yu Sung picked up the scalpel, any difficult surgery could be solved. And tonight's celebration proved that. Although he was the greatest contributor this time, Yu Sung was not very happy, for he did not know when he had lost any time to rest for himself. Each day for him repeated in the familiar operating room. With the ability to save the dead, Yu Sung had been called the Hand of God. At first he thought it was a good thing, since saving one person would make dozens happy. However, doctors with such talent are few, even rare, so after patients flocked in upon hearing the rumor, Yu Sung didn't get a second's rest. He was treated like a portable medical device for VIP patients. Is this nickname truly a blessing, or is it meaningless? Not only physically exhausted, but mentally and his relationships around him also gradually deteriorated. Yu Sung couldn't even remember the last time he spent time for himself. Earning money was fine, but now he didn't even have time to spend it. So he had to endure it. Yu Sung thought the rest of his life would always be like this. But life is impermanent. While he was about to go home to open a beer as a reward, a blinding car headlight came speeding toward him. Before dying, Yu Sung's life flashed before his eyes. Ironically, all scenes were from the operating room. Could such a rare genius end his short life here? No, perhaps Yu Sung's story would continue. The setting suddenly shifted, from modern to an ancient castle. In the small house, a call of day echoed, along with countless why questions from Yu Sung. Slowly opening his eyes, he saw his hands had become chubby. And before him were the happy faces of a couple. Yu Sung looked bewildered as the mother of this body doted on him. He was confused, not knowing what was happening. The last thing he remembered was being on his way home from the hospital when a truck hit him and killed him. Because of that, this scene baffled Yu Sung. He didn't understand how he could still be alive. And these two people were complete strangers to him. The son couple loved this boy called Dae very much. Cradled in the father's arms, he was shocked to realize his body was now tiny. At the same time, Yu Sung vaguely realized he had been reborn as their child. A scratch on his hand caught the mother's attention. The boy's father frantically wanted to call the priest, but unexpectedly the mother insisted she could heal him. Yu Sung assumed she meant medicine. But one thing he didn't expect was that the woman before him could use magic to treat wounds. In just a few seconds, the scratch that should have left a scar was now completely gone. This meant that Yu Sung had been reincarnated into a new world. A world where magic existed. The quiet night sky enveloped the small house as a gentle breeze stirred. Inside, Dae slowly opened his eyes and looked around. He sat up and stared out the window for a while, silently wondering why he'd slept so long. He sat there and thought it had been 3 months since he was reborn into this world. During that time, he had learned a few things. First, this world was completely different from his previous one, just as you might expect. A typical fantasy world where monsters and humanoid races coexist. Because of that, humans are frequently attacked by monsters. As a result, people were forced to take dangerous paths, risking their lives to grow stronger. One interesting thing he noticed was that they chose to develop magic instead of science. Every time his mother healed his wounds, they relied on magic rather than medical techniques for even the most ordinary things. The last thing he realized, this was not a dream but a new reality. Yet for some reason, he retained the memories and knowledge of his past life. He never thought he'd be this carefree again. Looking back, he never had the chance to take care of himself because of his previous job. If not for the accident with the truck, he might have died suddenly from overwork anyway. Then he flopped back down to enjoy himself. Having been reborn, he decided to savor these moments. When would he ever sleep this well again? A faint light shone on the potted plant in the room, bringing the rare peace he felt now that he was a carefree boy. He closed his eyes and dozed off, then noticed something. Huh, what's this? He closed his eyes and dozed off, then noticed something. Huh, what's this? It felt like a thin thread running through his body. What is this cool healing sensation? Is this the mana Io and Sen mentioned? I feel really invigorated. Is this the mana Io and Sen talked about? It seems not easy to control. If I force it, it'll disperse everywhere. Try to focus exactly on where this mana thread begins and ends. Mana should function like blood. Imagine the mana flow like a bloodstream. Try to feel it filling the body. The mana stream is endless, no rush, just slowly. Time passed and autumn leaves gently. Time passed and autumn leaves gently. Cut to another scene. Day was holding a flame in his hand. He shouted with joy, finally it's a success. He didn't take his eyes off the flame in his hand, smiling inwardly, thinking he could do it. The technique of controlling mana flow to launch a fireball was truly worth the 3 years he had spent on it. Although he had succeeded in understanding the mana flow and memorizing usable pathways, there remained one problem. He couldn't understand what the book explained about mana control. He carefully read every passage in the book. The book taught that mana must be stored inside the body and controlled when needed, since mana is said to be drawn from the surroundings. But why must mana be stored inside from the start? Above all, this seemed to limit the use of mana once stored. No matter how you look at it, it's inefficient. Day proposed a hypothesis. What if we let mana move naturally without forcing it to be retained? In that case, we wouldn't need to worry about mana quality anymore, and we'd even avoid mana loops. Although this dangerous method was never mentioned in the book, he thought it was worth trying. He smiled again. I never thought it would yield results beyond expectations. I need to try more. At that moment, Sen, watching from outside, whispered, "Look, I can't help but tell him how proud I am." Whenever I see Day, he reads at every opportunity. She covered her mouth and giggled. I'm telling you, our child will definitely become a mage. Io protested, what are you saying? Given his build, he needs to train like a swordsman. She waved her hand, otherwise our cute Day will be forced to become a meathead like him. Io sighed in exasperation, at least a handsome meathead. Inside, Day heard it all and thought to himself, if they're going to say it out loud anyway, why bother hiding it? Sen grew a little worried. Although I'm very proud of our little Day, don't you think our child focuses on books too much? What do you mean? She continued. Aren't children his age going outside to play with friends? I'm just worried our Day only wants to read. Io reassured her, come on, there's no need to worry too much. Most parents worry their children don't like reading, right? You even said you want to raise him to be a great mage, so what's wrong with that? Sen looked at their tiny child, unable to say more. Back to Day, he thought this still wasn't enough. I need to create a perfect path for mana to flow through. As perfect as possible. The next morning at Day's house, Sen flung open the door, full of energy. Is our little darling here? Day, holding a book, looked up and replied, yes, it's me. She couldn't stop worrying. He's reading again. Although proud that her child liked books, Sen still hoped Day could meet peers and play, maybe because she never had the chance to play with her child. Day felt puzzled, looking at his mother in silence. After a moment of thoughtful silence, Sen moved closer and asked, Day, do you want to play with mother? He was surprised. Play with mother. A thought flashed through his mind. Maybe mother wants to teach me magic? Yeah, she's definitely trying to play with me to teach me a few things. Day brightened and immediately agreed, yes, let's play. But Sen's expression softened, and she quietly called Day. She hugged him tightly, thinking that her child was so happy just to play with his mother, and she told herself she should have asked him sooner. A little while later, Day was taken to another place, his face showing bewilderment. Oh, mother, where are the books? Why are we at the gate? She answered, that's right, you don't need to read books today. We're going to take a walk outside. Day turned away and declined. No, I think I need to study more. I can't spend time playing outside when I should be training. Sen, proud of Day, affectionately hugged him. I didn't think you'd be so studious. What am I going to do with you? She tried to persuade him again, but today will be fine. Don't you want to see what it's like outside? Go out and try to have some fun. Only then did he think, I've never gone outside since being reborn. I don't even know what this world is like. All right, I guess one day is fine. Having decided, he replied, okay, let's go out and play. Sen was overjoyed, beaming, let's go right now. Stepping outside, Day's eyes seemed to shine, taking in every scene around him. For 3 years I only read at home and never thought about going out. Looking at the leaves, the large windmills, Day felt as if he had been imprisoned by himself. A gentle breeze passed by and refreshed his soul. Seeing him standing dazed, Sen spoke. Day, what are you doing? Why don't you try exploring? Day looked up, then began to take steps, taking his first steps outside, then ran swiftly across the vast green fields. In that moment, Day felt one with nature. The scent of flowers and grass made his heart flutter. Then he stopped, stood on a rocky outcrop, and gazed over the majestic scenery around him, the beauty leaving him wide-mouthed in amazement. Before being reborn, I never had the chance to care for myself. I always lived under pressure. Surviving was the best I could do. I had never felt this liberated. Still, I'm glad I was born into this world. Day called out to his mother, and Sen responded excitedly. Day turned to look at her, smiling happily, and spoke with the sincerest words. Thank you, mother, for bringing me outside. At a hospital, there was an emergency case. Dung had to give his all with the nurses to hasten the stretcher. An emergency patient, a life repeating over and over between him and the patient all day long. He never rested his hands even for a few short minutes. And during surgeries, there was always someone urging him on. That voice was always echoing, Doctor, the next operation will start in 5 minutes. After the operation ended, Dung collapsed. I'm exhausted now, completely spent, at my limit. But the voices of nurses and patients always held him back. Save me, doctor, you have to go. Suddenly, somewhere a faint voice called, Day, Day. Sen's voice awakened Day with a start, pulling him out of the recurring nightmare. She gently smiled and stroked his head as she spoke. You just had a scary dream, didn't you? Hearing his mother's voice, Day gradually calmed and thought, it was just a dream. I had a good time and then dreamed of such things. Day struggled to open one eye under the glaring sunlight. The strange city he had passed through appeared before him. This is not the world where I have to work tirelessly. Thinking of that, Day felt more at ease. Now I'm a child, carefree. That's right, I was reborn into this world. I certainly won't live like my previous life again. The scenery here seemed filtered through Day's eyes. Even the house he lived in was very different from his previous life. Seeing Eo, she cheerfully greeted, You're home. The man looked at his wife and child, smiling, and asked, Welcome home. Did you have fun playing? Day replied excitedly, Yes. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. That's right. He reached out to tug at Sen's skirt and softly called, Mother. At that moment, Day's mother widened her eyes. Please teach me magic. Hearing her son's request, Sen was moved and exclaimed, Wait. Then, unable to contain herself, she sank into her husband's arms. Is my child really this cute and lovable? She kept exclaiming. You want to train already? If you want, Mother will gladly teach you. Seeing Sen's reaction, he could only give an awkward smile. Even after so many times, he still couldn't get used to this response. A moment later, Sen began teaching Day his first lesson. Since this is Day's request, let's begin. Then she started with the most basic element of humanity. A small flame appeared brilliantly from Sen's hand. Day was immensely delighted by the unprecedented wonder. Seeing that reaction, Sen couldn't help but be surprised, and resolved to teach more thoroughly. Day, this is fire, isn't it interesting? Day forced a few smiles. Seeing this, Sen blushed and murmured to herself, still not impressed enough. He thought secretly, it's because this is magic I've used a few times before. Then Sen thought of something and called him, Shall we sit down first? Day obediently answered yes. Once sitting properly on the bed, Sen resumed. The principle of magic is that the central light draws in surrounding energy to create what the user desires. With magic, you want to transform it into mana. The formula for success is an activation word combined with an activating action. See, easy, right? Then she used the flame from before as an example. Simply gather mana, point at the air, and shout fire, and a flame will appear. Hearing the basic knowledge, just apply the formula. Day curiously asked, Mother, I have a question. Sen replied, Go ahead, ask. Student Day began asking as if taking a test. Can you convert mana through a different method? Sen was a bit surprised. A different method. After thinking for a moment, Day began to explain. Take fire as an example. If there are 3 red mana grains, you burn mana, then it becomes blue mana, and you gather the mana you want to ignite. Finally, apply physics, use friction to create the desired flame. Instead of converting mana 3 times, why not simplify it? Although if you do that, mana will disperse quickly. Sen had been wide-eyed watching her child and suddenly encountered such bold ideas. Oh my, an advanced question. She pondered for a moment and answered. Yes, and it's not impossible. If those 3 processes are combined and then stabilized, it could be feasible. Then she and Day looked at each other and laughed. That's in theory. However, Day still kept thinking. He stroked his chin to steady the idea. That means, looking at his small hand, Day clenched it into a fist. Can I add multiple attributes? As he thought, he performed the second step and spread his 5 proud fingers. Suddenly, a stream of mana shot from his hand. So powerful it pierced straight up to the ceiling, leaving both Sen and himself astonished. Seeing the result achieved on the very first try, as if receiving a VIP top-up bonus, he thought to himself, I did it. Io from the neighboring house also ran out in surprise and asked, what was that just now? What happened? Sen was equally astonished. At this moment she had no idea what was going on. Seeing Day's joyful, innocent face, she thought to herself, in the moment before my child used magic, I didn't notice that whenever Day uses magic, the mana flow always moves. A fleeting, indescribable worry crossed Sen's eyes. Day looked up at the ceiling in this life, still questioning himself, a repeating life, spending days with patience. But haven't I felt that before? That line of thought detached him from reality, making him forget his parents' existence in this world. Day kept muttering as predicted, it makes sense to think of mana like atoms, and if you start combining mana like compounds, you wouldn't need to add more mana. Seeing him appear more mature than a child, Sen thought quietly, Day, this child truly has many oddities. Tears suddenly welled in her eyes as she gazed at him. No, I'm too focused. At this, Day returned to his innocent look and cheerfully asked his mother, is something wrong? She replied awkwardly, I'm just very proud that you can use magic. Day scratched his head, smug. Really? Looks like you're a genius. Sen cheered from beside him. Our son is so talented. That night when the sky held only moon and stars, Day, sleeping in his room, was jolted awake by hearing someone's voice. This is serious. What will we do if he's taken to the academy at this age? To prevent that, we must do our best. Io sat at the dining table, clasping his hands to reassure Sen. Day overheard part of it and thought to himself, are they talking about me? Io sighed again, you know it's not as easy as you say. Sen answered, Day is a prodigy that appears once in hundreds, even thousands of years. If the academy notices him, her voice trembled involuntarily. Day tossed and turned in his room, beginning to be curious about the academy. I don't know what the academy is like, but it seems I might be taken there. Thinking this, his hand tightened slightly as he resolved, to keep that from happening, I need power. At first I only learned magic for fun, but now I've changed my mind. I need to achieve absolute power. Those wandering thoughts led Day back to sleep. Years passed. After a peaceful night, the scene gradually brightened. A diligent bird already perched and sang on a high branch. Sunlight slipped through the window and lit up the whole room. On the study desk, the candle had burned more than halfway down, and a few books lay unfinished. A white-haired youth stretched after a long sleep. He looked out the window and muttered, is it morning already? Hastily climbing out of bed, the young man scratched his head and scolded himself. I'm such a sleepyhead, I lose track of time. Should I go explore now? At this moment, a bright face with intelligent eyes appeared. The youth was Day, 15 years old. Recalling the earlier period after he burst forth controlling mana, Day set about pursuing his goals. His experiments and research into magic advanced level by level. Moreover, he threw himself into meditation and magic practice every night. His talent for understanding mana proved his rapid development. Besides training techniques, Day continuously expanded his knowledge to improve his future professional capabilities. Because he had absorbed enormous amounts of mana during this time, his hair had turned pure white. Returning to the present, Day was now a teenager. He suddenly remembered something. All right, I need to take this too. Then he bent his head and meticulously wrote something. I don't know how much medical knowledge I'll be able to use, but let's give it a try. At this point, one could clearly read the words he wrote on the board. I can heal those who are ill. At this moment, the words he had written on the board were clearly visible. I can heal those who are ill. He took a deep breath and thought to himself, but before I go, maybe I should try one last time. First, a blazing red flame rose up fire. Second, a whirlwind of air formed wind. Finally, condensed water and moisture became ice. He pointed at the air and directly used mana to control all three elements. Satisfied with the result, silver-haired Day gleefully thought to himself, great, it's perfect, should I really go now? With that, he strode straight into town and placed a small wooden stake into the ground. It was the support for the little sign he had just written. Scanning the area, Day muttered, this seems like a reasonable spot, though it's a bit embarrassing. Blushing, he cleared his throat a few times, then gathered himself and shouted like a fool, I can heal anyone who feels unwell, bring anyone here. Seeing the 15-year-old kid shouting like that, the townspeople found it amusing. What a kind young man, he's right. Those nearby whispered to each other, I haven't seen anyone laugh like that in ages, just like when I was young. From the crowd, a kindly man advised Day, boy, go play saint somewhere else, you shouldn't tease the sick like that. Taken aback by the villagers' reactions, Day was a little stunned. Who do these people think I am? After a few seconds of shock, he regained his composure. No, I predicted this. Just wait a little longer. In the end, the first day of his startup failed. Day couldn't believe it. No one came. He stood up disappointed, deciding to go home today. Just then, someone stepped in front of him and asked, "Can you really heal the sick?" On the verge of tears, Day was surprised someone would ask that. It was a young girl about his age, dressed like an upper-class lady. She asked again, "No matter how ill the patient is, you can still heal them, right?" Seeing Vanessa, he thought to himself, could she be my first patient? The girl pursed her lips and scrutinized Day with a probing look. Vanessa didn't hesitate to criticize bluntly, showing disbelief. "I know, it's absurd to think a fool like you could cure anyone." Her words struck like an arrow to his chest and directly angered Day. "Really?" He snapped back, "Shorty." Vanessa had just turned away when he called her back abruptly. She looked at him annoyed. "What, shorty?" Day's face darkened as he spoke each word clearly. "I may look like a useless 15-year-old on the street, but there isn't a single patient in this world I cannot heal. Stop judging by appearances." His words, delivered with confident force, seemed to carry a halo. Seeing Day like that, Vanessa blushed slightly. He's really an absurd kid. Who would have thought that inside the body of a 15-year-old boy was a seasoned doctor who had spent more time in hospitals than at home? Vanessa thought as she looked at his face. But what is this strange feeling of trust? Thinking that, she reconsidered. "You're right, I'm sorry." Vanessa picked at her blue dress, gave a small curtsy, and bowed her head to introduce herself formally. "Allow me to properly introduce myself. I am the only daughter of Viscount Gat, Vanessa." Having finished introducing herself, she frowned and emphasized, "Not shorty." At that, Day awkwardly forced a smile and said, "My name is Day." He thought to himself, is she nobility? It's no wonder her clothes look so fine. Afterwards, the two had a short conversation before the sun sank below the horizon. "Why are you suddenly speaking so formally? Just talk like before," Vanessa murmured. "Anyway, the patient I mentioned earlier is my father." He widened his eyes at the words Viscount Gat. She sadly recounted her father's condition. Earlier, the skin on his chest reddened and developed into a mass, which then swelled into a ball. Hearing these symptoms, a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be a malignant tumor? He frowned, adopting the air of a physician. "Then we should go and check. If this is an emergency, every second counts." Suddenly his gaze fell. But if it's a tumor the size of a ball, it might already be too late. With that in mind, he ran after Vanessa toward her home without stopping. After a short while, Vanessa's footsteps came to a halt. She led him to a walled, gated manor. Vanessa looked at him. "We're here, please come inside." Day reassured himself, "Of course it's grand, this is a noble's house." Before she could step through the gate, a middle-aged man ran out shouting, "Milady, you're home." Vanessa responded. The butler Von Elsia rushed over, grabbed her hand, voice trembling. "How is my lord?" He stammered, "Milady. The thing is, Viscount." Then news struck that shattered Vanessa's nerves. His condition suddenly worsened and he has passed away. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. "You're lying." Immediately, Vanessa ran into her father's room. The helpless butler called after her, "Milady." Vanessa tried to run as fast as she could, repeatedly telling herself, "No, no." She flung the door open. Vanessa cried out, tears streaming down her face, "Father." The Viscount lay motionless on the bed while the Viscountess sobbed without ceasing. She softly called, "Alicia, Von." Alicia couldn't bear it and ran over, wailing, "No, father, please." At that moment, Day appeared and examined the condition. "May I take a look?" A black miasma drifted through the air. The tumor at the Viscount's chest had turned dark. Day focused on the faint remaining heartbeat there, thinking, "It's quite weak, but I can still sense it." Suddenly, a radiant monosphere appeared in his palm. He declared, "He's still alive." The Viscountess and the captain of the guard stared in astonishment. Vanessa gently gripped the hem of his garment and whispered, "Day, my father." She looked at him with tearful eyes, "Please save him." Day curled his lips in a smile. He regarded her with a dependable expression and replied, "Don't worry." Day's presence made everyone in the manor curious. Someone stepped forward and asked, "Who is that boy?" The Viscountess answered, "Not sure, he seems to be with Alicia." Hearing this, the man became agitated. How can an unknown commoner be allowed into a Viscount's manor? After learning Day could save the Viscount, the captain of the guard widened his eyes. "Wait, did he say he can save the Viscount?" The maid beside him trembled and said, "He's probably a fraud. Maybe he came in to steal valuables." The Viscountess was so worried about her husband that she paid little attention to such suspicions. She continued to cry with illness-like grief. Now that didn't matter, she just wanted to cling to the last bit of hope that the boy might work a miracle. Then she looked at his radiant, credible face and placed her trust in the youth before her. Returning to the case, Day looked at the tumor on the Viscount's chest and thought to himself that he couldn't believe it had grown and rotted until it was pitch black. A sharp knife formed at his fingertip. First, I need to concentrate mana to shape the scalpel. The guards and the butler, seeing the strange action, went pale and immediately shouted, "What are you trying to do?" The guard's yell nearly deafened Day. After the ringing subsided, he turned and asked, "Doing what?" "I'm trying to heal him." The man yelled back, "Don't be ridiculous. How could you heal him like that?" When the family showed distrust, he threatened, "If you don't believe me, I can stop right now, no problem." That left the man speechless. Seeing the guard's overreaction, the Viscountess now called for the captain. She looked at him, her expression showing resolve. "For now, trust this boy," he reminded, had to accept. "I understand, milady." Then she waved her hand dismissively, shooing the guard away. Shut up and go elsewhere, you're disturbing me." Unable to act, he ground his teeth at this arrogant brat. Returning to his work, he exhaled. When he pierced the tumor, pus flowed instead of blood. He deduced, this is no longer a tumor but skin necrosis caused by toxins. Worry flickered in his eyes. A swirl of blue mana circled the Viscount. He began rolling up his sleeves. Then, "Let's begin." He cast mana to form a surgical blade and started cutting away all the necrotic tissue. Those outside gaped at his technique. After removing the mass, he continued to open the chest and made an incision in the thoracic area. Suddenly, something struck his eyes that made Day's throat itch. Behind the ribs, the man's lungs were deep red. He thought, just as I suspected, his lungs have also begun to necrotize. Who knows how long it's been left like this? He then continued the operation, but from another perspective one could say the man was rather fortunate. This necrotic area wasn't very large, so even if I remove it all, he can still recover. A new wave of mana made the Viscount's chest hair shimmer. After dealing with the root cause, he began to use mana to create medical thread to suture the cuts with mana thread. He was now intensely focused on handling the chest sutures. Those outside were silent, not daring to breathe loudly. The butler watched Day's back and murmured, "The boy the lady brought here." I have no words left. Looking at his bright, focused face, he thought, he has a presence none of the lady's peers possess, along with the masterful skill of those hands. Day's hands, surrounded by mana, moved with endless grace. From his fingertips, each strand of mana thread twisted and braided, his mind on the final step of drawing the threads tight. Watching his silhouette, the butler felt as if he were observing a puppet master. Even a godlike puppeteer, Day ignored those stares and focused solely on his craft. The butler whispered, "This boy may truly perform a miracle." The maid beside him, hearing that, glanced at him, then looked back at the youth before them, who at first was thought to be a fraud but now caused them to change their minds. "I agree." After a while, Day stopped, wiping sweat from his brow. "All right, almost done." Looking into the Viscount's chest, the pitch-black tumor had been removed and the neat stitches completed. Now he just needed to support the heartbeat a bit. He began performing chest compressions to stimulate the heartbeat. "I'll use mana to perform emergency resuscitation." His mana seemed to turn into the electrical current of a defibrillator. Day thought, if I just assist with cardiac massage. With one press, the electrical charge flowed into the heart, causing it to beat strongly once and then stabilize. Hearing that first heartbeat, he beamed. "Done, he's alive." The surgery was a success. He turned to inform the family, but something made him hesitate. The Viscount's family was looking at Day as if he were a strange prodigy with an unusual method of treatment. Day blinked and wondered what that expression meant. He glanced at the Viscount and saw blood at the corner of his mouth and immediately understood. Blood had suddenly started circulating again in a body that had been effectively dead, so bleeding was to be expected. Those outside didn't understand. The guard ground his teeth and hissed, "Bastard." He pointed at him, "I knew it, you're just a quack." Seeing him agitated, Day raised his hands with a smile and hurried to explain. "You again? Sorry, allow me to explain a bit." But the man gave him no chance to speak. "You're still trying to excuse yourself to get away." Looking at the Viscount's complexion, he retorted, "But he's alive now." The guard wouldn't look at the result and only bellowed, "Are you still being stubborn?" The more he spoke, the more agitated the guard became, shouting, "He's not alive. All I see is a bloodied body." Helpless at this stubbornness, he thought to himself it shouldn't be an issue, he was truly alive. But the guard kept shouting, "I can't believe you dared cut open a noble's body. Are you even human?" Day sighed, "Wait a minute, let's see." As the scene grew chaotic, a voice softly rang out. "Day, you told me you could definitely save him." Alicia shouted, "I trusted you." He instinctively took a step back and tried to explain again. "Wait a moment, he's really not dead." But looking at her father's motionless body, she whispered, "But now he's like this." Her tears fell uncontrollably. "My father died because I brought you here." Seeing her remorse, he explained to reassure Alicia, "He will recover, just wait and see." Day felt skeptical about humanity at that moment. Why is everyone here like this? Has no one ever witnessed a surgery before? Before he could finish that thought, a sharp sword tip was pointed at his chest. "You lowly merchant. You not only harmed the Viscount but also deceived the lady." That was the captain of the guard's voice. He ordered the other soldiers to lay charges against him. "Day, isn't desecrating the Viscount's body enough for you?" Seeing their reactions, he swallowed his bitterness, took a deep breath, and then calmly said, "I put so much effort into saving him and didn't even get a word of thanks. And yet I'm being held at swordpoint." His voice was full of disappointment. Day looked the captain straight in the face and asked, "What did you just say? That I'm a conman and a murderer?" He frowned, anger flashing in his eyes. "You've picked the wrong person to mock." After being berated by the guard's brat and growing irritable, Day thought to himself that he understood why their reaction was so infuriating. But he stood tall alone before them, confident in his medical judgment. By the standards of this world, what he did was actually quite normal. At that moment, Day's face darkened as he emphasized each word. "I'll say it again, I have successfully treated him. Just wait for him to recover, I'm leaving now." With that, he turned and walked straight for the front door. Before departing, Day glanced at the men who had pointed swords at him and warned, "And consider this your warning, don't you dare block my way." Realizing he was the target, the guard hissed in anger, gripping his sword's hilt as if to strike. "Arrogant wretch." Day froze, took a deep breath, then used magic to form mana chains that bound the guard tightly, clenching his hands and murmuring, "Bind." The guard, stunned by the sudden flash, was taken aback. "Binding talisman? How can he use magic like that?" The accompanying soldiers were also bewildered. "Commander," seeing they still hesitated, the guard barked, "What are you waiting for? Seize him quickly. He can't cast multiple spells at once." The soldiers obeyed. But once more Day released his grip and shouted, "Bind." The soldiers who moved to seize him were also caught and bound by the mana chains. Refusing to believe what had happened, the guard blinked and stammered, "The spell is finished." Seeing the mana radiating from him, the guard was astonished. At this age he can already complete spells. He couldn't help but worry, what on earth is this brat? After a moment, the mana withdrew back into Day, and those who had been bound were released. Before leaving, Day left a final message. "This is your last warning, don't block my way." Having left the troublesome manor, it was already dark. Day rubbed his head as he walked, muttering, "Although the differences between medical schools are vast, this is just too much," he kept muttering as he went. At the gate, he silently scolded the guard for daring to treat him like a deceitful brat who knew nothing. "But that man was the first patient I'd treated here." Pulling the latch to open the door, he suddenly felt a small sense of accomplishment. However, upon stepping inside, he sighed in frustration. "Just as I thought, my medical skills are useless here." Suddenly, while he was dazed, he heard a reprimand. "Day, you're home late." Only then did he realize someone else was home. "Oh no, I completely forgot." The one who had scolded him was his mother. Mrs. Sen frowned, displeased. "What time did I tell you to be home?" He stammered. "7, mother." "And what time is it now? Do you know how many bad people there are in the world? You'll be grounded for 2 days. No matter the world, mothers are always the same, late and you're grounded." Day had nothing left to say and obediently accepted the scolding. In his mind he thought, "No matter where I go, people treat me like a child." Night deepened and the last light in the house went out, while Day slept soundly at the Viscount's manor at the same time. The Viscount's chamber was in an uproar with a strained voice. "What just happened? Who is that boy?" Alicia called softly. At that moment, he had regained consciousness and looked displeased. Alicia and the lady were startled and turned around, and the guards gaped. "The Viscount is alive. How can this be?" The guard remained frozen with his sword bound by mana, his face ashen. "Is the Viscount really alive?" The lady could only exhale in relief. Alicia's earlier words of disbelief rushed back to her. She sobbed in agitation. "How did you expect me to trust you?" Or the guard pointing a sword at Day's throat and sneering, calling him a lowly merchant. At the thought of that, the Viscountess wished she could dig a hole and crawl into it. She said, "I didn't even recognize my savior. I've made a terrible mistake." The Viscountess kept blaming herself and ordered a search for Day. Take responsibility for this and find him at once. This damages our family's reputation." The guard, confused, said, "How am I suddenly able to move? I'm not bound anymore." He cried out, "Magic." Then he lost his balance and fell to the ground. The lady turned away helplessly, leaving one order: find him and personally apologize for your rudeness. The guard replied, "Yes, I understand." The steward mused, "This is truly fascinating. How could such a young man perform such a miracle?" Suddenly someone interjected, "Perhaps he's a moon saint." The remark made everyone exclaim in surprise, "A saint?" They debated eagerly, "But I've never heard of saints using magic. I'm not sure about that." After a while, the Viscount slept soundly in bed. Someone cried out, "Look, he seems relaxed. It's probably just sleep." Everyone witnessed it themselves. The guard added, "If it's not a saint who can restore the dead, then who else could have done this?" To understand saints, one must briefly review human history. Who are the saints? Ancient records say they are those chosen by the gods, possessing great divine power, able to hear the gods' words, favored by the gods, even their representatives or reincarnations. Hearing this, the lady was skeptical, but could it really be that boy? I've never heard of a saint in our kingdom. Or is he an unknown saint? Von Alicia shared her mother's thought. Isn't this the ailment even archbishops couldn't cure? Someone added, confirming the suspicion. Surely the one who healed the Viscount is a saint. The steward looked at the guard and asked anxiously, "Then how could you treat a saint that way, Captain?" He turned his face away in shame. "I'm very sorry. Through my stupidity I caused trouble for the Viscount." The lady was no better. She took responsibility. "Didn't we all just stand by and watch? This is all our fault." Von Alicia beside her also deeply regretted her fragile trust. No, that saint, go to him and apologize." Suddenly someone quietly asked, "What are you all talking about?" The question made Von Alicia start. Oh. The Viscount had been helped up by a maid. He held the stitches on his chest and asked with difficulty, "Who did you say the saint was? Tell me, what on earth happened while I was unconscious?" Von Alicia lowered her head and whispered, "Sir, a saint healed your father." Hearing that, he clenched his fist. "So I owe my recovery to that saint." Realizing his benefactor had been insulted by the guards, even just awakened, he scolded them harshly. "And yet you have the nerve to be proud of your rudeness." Suddenly the Viscount's body twinged. "What the hell?" Seeing this, the guard's face changed and he shouted, "Viscount." The Viscount angrily snapped, "Stop shouting." Looking at his hand trembling with anger, the Viscount ordered, "Use all personnel in this manner and every means available to find him." The command rang heavily throughout the room. At the same time, Day, reading a book, felt his ears prick. Did someone just mention me? On a fine morning, along the trail into the forest, Sen cheered Day on enthusiastically. "Good luck, Day." He began to perform the formula, concentrating mana. Raised his hand and said, "True healing," but he healed into a mockery. The broken branch snapped in two. This petrified Day, he gaped in surprise. Day's mother beside him teased, "Oh my, your failure is so cute." Unwilling to accept it, he tried again with fire. Maybe fire will work. He continued experimenting with light. Sen beside him wore 3D glasses as if she'd been ready with popcorn all along. Feeling the basic magic was still correct, he tried once more. But it was still just a futile attempt. Refusing to accept it, Day started jumping up and down. "Why won't this thing work? Why?" Sen laughed at his childishness. "All right, let mother explain. Listen carefully." She began to explain, "Healing is a charm that uses mana to elevate the target's vitality." He listened to his mother and thought quietly, "It's overly simplified." Not leaving it as theory, Sen prepared to demonstrate once more for him. "Try to imagine using your mana to create a sheath around your target." She focused mana toward the broken branch, light radiated and the wood's fibers drew together around the wound. Like that, it's healed. Within an instant the branch was whole again, without a trace. Sen smiled reassuringly. "It's not that hard. Try again, you understand now." Day reluctantly agreed to try again. "Yes." Suddenly something caught Sen's attention. "Russell, what's that sound?" A wild animal appeared before the two of them. It was a deer. The most notable thing was the blood on its ankle. It looked to have a serious leg injury, unfortunate as it was. Sen had an idea and cheerfully said to Day, "Perfect, Day, why don't you try healing this deer?" He asked this one. She explained, treating it as practice. He found it appealing, stroking his chin and thinking, "It needs help anyway. This is probably better practice than a branch, right?" Sen quickly finalized the plan. First, to save the deer they had to restrain it, approach carefully without scaring it. Watching his mother's attitude, Day had a bad feeling. Why did she seem to enjoy this situation? Then he began the task of catching the deer. As he neared, he stepped on a branch, causing a loud crack which startled the deer into fleeing. He shouted its run away. Zen encouraged him, go day, catch it. Not understanding his mother's meaning, he chased after the deer, wondering why he was doing this. He gritted his teeth and ran with all his might. Was it worth making the hand of God bother to learn healing? Then he answered himself, of course, I must do everything possible to save as many lives as I can. He cast the spell to catch the deer, a hand swung and the incantation was chanted as he thought of the past. Recalling the strange, wary looks from people in the Viscount's manor, he realized one thing, the people here. Instead of understanding my modern medical knowledge, they feared it because they were uncertain about it. The memory ended and Day had caught the deer. He looked at it happily, got you. After carrying the deer back to Sen, he examined it for a while and concluded, it really can run well with one injured leg. He tried to soothe it, but the deer seemed more afraid than affectionate. Easy, lie still, I'll heal you. Sen cheered, good luck, Day. A massive surge of mana burst from Day. He thought, if it's the magic they use, I can definitely do it. Sen flinched, the magic radiating from him astonished her many times over. This terrible flow of mana, but how? Is it that this current is trying to push mana into the deer to heal it in the name of a doctor? I'm sure I'll reach the next step, he shouted. The healing, green light spread across the forest. Receiving his strike, whatever could bear it couldn't. The deer let out a cry of pain. Then it went motionless. Day and Sen stood stunned, staring at Day's fortunate patient. It took about 3 seconds for the mother and child to realize which creature had been healed. Yes, it healed and logged out completely, no longer lame. The two of them were baffled. Oh my god, it died instantly. What happened? It was supposed to be healed. Day sighed helplessly, thinking he couldn't save a life like a proper doctor. He frowned, considering, use mana to lay down a membrane and raise vitality. Is that what mother said? Seeing Sen's smiling face, he wondered again why it made him unable to grasp how to heal when all other mages could do it. Thinking of that, Vei looked at his palm, wondering if it had to do with the mana path he possessed. At that moment, Gi2 posed a hypothesis. Suppose I use healing on an elderly patient. Young doctor, please heal me, then I would apply the correct formula. Of course, wait a moment for treatment. And the old man would smile and thank him. Thank heavens, how can I repay you? Then he'd spit out a strawberry seed. And the family would erect a stone tablet for him. Just thinking about it gave Day chills. I'll have to stay away from healing magic from now on. I can't risk anyone getting hurt. After the mana outburst that caused the deer to log out, he restored peace to the forest. That night at Day's house, Sen cooked an amazingly delicious steak. Io, marveling, asked, is there a special occasion why steak like this? Sen didn't answer, only smiled suggestively. About that. She pinched her son's cheek and boasted, what, our genius child can't heal, that's what I said, adorable. This made Io laugh until she nearly choked. So the couple burst out laughing, teasing Day, damn. At that moment he made up his mind, I'll never learn healing magic again. Cut to a fine morning in the Holy Empire Gaio. A statue of a goddess was carved with exquisite detail. My lord, my lord. The man knelt deeply beneath the statue. Murmuring, his pupils contracted, are you calling me? This man was the Pope of the Holy Empire. The statue emitted a resonant voice, find him. The statue rang out again, find the white-haired saint, certainly from Vin Long. Somewhere along a trail in the quiet forest, a troop of soldiers led by a knight chatted excitedly. Have you heard about that new saint? Of course we've heard. There already was a saintess. Unbelievable that there's another one. One man replied softly, I heard this new saint is quite young. What does age matter? She was chosen by the gods. People kept speculating, wondering about the star the Holy Spirit mentioned. Well, another saintess is good for us. Isn't this unprecedented in history? To understand why the soldiers were so abuzz, we must go back 10 hours when the Holy Empire's force was dispatched. In the Holy Empire G, a loud voice spoke, O goddess. The Pope knelt before the statue, composing himself and praying. Finally the goddess spoke, thank you, O goddess. He stared wide-eyed at the statue and asked, do you have an important matter? The voice replied, go find the white-haired saint located in the land called Sulia. The Pope continued to listen for more messages from the heavens, but nothing else came. So he asked again, is that all? The voice answered, what more do you want? The back and forth left him perplexed. The Pope asked suspiciously, but there are many white-haired people in Sulia, can't you give any more clue? A beam of light shone above the statue with guidance. This new saint is 15 years old. Find them and bring them to the Holy Empire. Hearing this, the Pope startled and hurriedly replied, "Ah, yes, O goddess, I will go seek them immediately." Then he turned and called out loudly, "Are you there?" The one called responded, "Yes, your holiness." A blond young man appeared. His name was E. He asked, "You summon me?" The Pope ordered, "Prepare a delegation at once, send them to Sulia." E immediately obeyed, "Yes, your holiness, understood." The Pope still felt puzzled about the new saint. While in Day's small house, he was reading when Io called, "Day, do you want to learn swordsmanship?" He replied curiously, "Swordsmanship?" He smiled, "It's good to know many ways to defend yourself." He smiled, "It's good to know many ways to defend yourself." Then he compared it to his previous life, where essentials were easy to get. Here, even getting an apple could risk your life. He closed his book and looked at Io. "All right, I want to try learning." He was excited. "Great, shall we start now?" Before leaving the house, his father asked, "But what about these glasses?" He dodged the question. And then the clacking of two wooden swords rang out. Io smiled. "For a beginner, you're doing pretty well." By contrast, Day went pale. "Wait, luckily I learned Kendall before. Dad might be a bit overzealous." Watching Io keep striking, he thought, "Just teaching a few moves and he's that strong." Day's eyes brightened. He gripped the sword's hilt tighter. His action surprised Io a little. He asked, "What's wrong?" Day going to give up, but Day inhaled deeply and channeled mana into the sword. "Finished," he replied, giving up. "No way, just changing tactics a bit." Pointing the blade straight ahead, he smiled. Io was quite surprised by the young prodigy of swordwind. Then the two of them charged at each other to spar. He held nothing back and swung a blade down. Seeing the razor-sharp arc, Io felt thrilled. All right. But the joy was short-lived. Day's blade kept striking out. "At this rate, I'll lose." He gritted his teeth. He had no other choice. Clenching the sword's hilt, Io thought to himself that he had to use swordwind too. Seeing his father change his technique, Day watched with wide eyes. The sword was now wrapped in fierce, roaring flames. Io spun the sword's hilt, landed a strike, and successfully toppled him. He fell sitting hard on the ground, stunned with pain. Seeing that, Io couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Suddenly a loud call rang out, "Day." Cutscene. At this time, the town market was crowded with people. Nearby residents whispered to one another, "Aren't those the Intelligence Guild? They've been showing up a lot lately. I think they're looking for someone or something." A cloaked man listened in silently, then slipped away. At a gathering, a few men talked. "Found anything yet?" The other replied, "Not yet." "Seriously, how can we find someone with only age and hair color?" A young man in a blue tunic frowned, complaining about the pressure of being asked for progress every day. The guard revealed his face from under his hood. Someone said, "Look, he's coming over again." He spoke up, "Have you found anything yet?" The blue-clad youth showed his irritation openly. "Sir Knight, finding a needle in the desert would be easier than this." The man beside him added, "A 15-year-old white-haired kid. How are we supposed to find him with that little info?" Seeing the contemptuous attitude of those beneath him, the guard ground his teeth in anger. Those useless bastards. Suddenly, memories of the Viscount's threats surged back. The glasses were thrown and shattered on the ground. Someone yelled that they still hadn't found the boy. "What the hell are you people doing?" The guard bowed his head in a low voice. "I'm very sorry, Lord Viscount." The Viscount, enraged that his benefactor hadn't been found, ranted, "Did you think this was just an ordinary kid?" He kept yammering all day that this was a saint. My goodness, if people knew how badly we treated a saint. He even mentioned graver matters with a blackened face. "There will surely be war. The Holy Empire might declare war on us. Do you want to destroy this family? Go find him right now." No matter how badly the guard was shown up, he kept it inside and begged humbly, "Please do your utmost. I'll pay whatever is needed." He reminded himself he had to find the boy. Suddenly a young man asked, "You said you'll pay whatever, right?" He smiled slyly. "Then let me handle this for you." He finished with a cunning, narrow-eyed grin. Back at the sword lesson with Io, Day's hand was bleeding. He murmured, "Ah, it hurts." Seeing him like that, Io couldn't help feeling sorry. "Damn, that looks bad. I'm sorry, son." To ease his worry, Day smiled and replied, "It's okay." Sen then appeared and saw a long cut on Day's hand. "Day, what happened to your hand?" She ran over, scolding the father while worrying about Day. "Looks like a broken bone, dear." Io sighed and Day felt a bit embarrassed. "It's fine, Mom can treat it with magic." Although Day said that, Sen was still worried. "All right, I'll help you right away." This time he refused. "No, I want to try myself." A ring of energy appeared, enveloping Day's injured arm. "Heal." As the incantation ended, the energy radiated more powerfully than before. Sen couldn't hide her surprise. And now the wound on his arm was gone, healed completely. "It looks just like it did before." Sen's eyes went blank. Io asked again to be sure. Didn't you say last time the boy couldn't do it? She awkwardly explained, well, the boy killed my deer with one move. At the mention of that, Io could only think of his wife's delicious steak, so the origin was obvious. Over here, Day scratched his chin and murmured, I guess I'll have to explain everything now. Day mustered his courage and called out, Mother, Father, I have a few things I want to tell you. Then followed a conversation in the small house with the three of them. What's wrong, son? Day spoke his secret plainly to his parents. Actually, he candidly revealed a secret unlike a normal person's. If in his past life Day scored 30 on Section B but only about 1.25 on literature, no one could make sense of it. Sen broke the silence. Even if you look like that still, Io leaned in and whispered to his wife, my dear, the important thing is maybe. They conferred and then encouraged Day, though they didn't fully understand the story. Day, whatever you decide, your parents will always stand by you. Sen smiled, if you bring home an elf wife and you are happy, your parents will accept it. Their lack of prejudice was good, but it was a bit over the top. Back in the small house, Day explained his secret so Sen and Io wouldn't worry about him marrying an elf. It turned out to be about his mana reserve. His parents thought that instead of using a magic ring to store mana in the body, he lets mana form naturally. It's like being born with VIP status, unlike those who must grind and need storage pouches. Sen pulled out all her knowledge to analyze and explain that pure mana is stronger than stored mana, so she understood why Day's magic was so powerful. Hearing this, Day seemed enlightened. So if I use a healing spell on someone who can't tolerate pure mana then? At that moment, the image of a delicious faux venison steak popped into all three of their heads. Returning to the main topic, Sen seriously expressed her thoughts to Day. Son, I think you're a genius, but you've used our family's secret technique. Io interrupted her with an entirely opposite attitude. I think you definitely can't use it on ordinary people. What kind of talent is that? It's terrible. Joking aside, Day had a different thought, right? I can't use this magic to save ordinary people. If I want to help many people like a doctor, I need to think more carefully. Looking at Sen and Io worried, he thought to himself, I need a lot more surgical experience. He glanced at his hands that had seen many emergency cases and resolved it inwardly. Suddenly Day said, I'll head out now. Io asked, where are you going? Day came up with a reason, I'm just going for a walk. He now kept a secret. He couldn't tell them he was going to perform surgery. However, before leaving, he had to pass Sen's test. She warned, don't go with strangers, understand? He helplessly reassured her, Mom, I'm grown up. Io smiled too, you're at the age to have fun. Then he left, leaving only one sentence, I'll be back soon. Outside the outskirts of Ba Lao village, a man carrying a pile of luggage on his shoulder looked enlightened. The village was larger than he'd imagined. After that, Spectacles continued on the road with One Eye. One Eye said, I was going to pass through, but staying here might be fine. Suddenly someone called from behind, hey, traveler, can I ask you something? It was the young man with the drooping fringe who the guard had hired to look for Day. He held up a paper and asked, have you seen a kid like this? Spectacles replied, a kid? Looking at the sketch that wasn't far from a Picasso painting, Drooping Fringe described, blue eyes, white hair, and he's handsome too. The two men looked at that abstract picture. Handsome, One Eye bluntly mocked, that drawing's awful. Drooping Fringe snatched the paper back and snapped, rude, I'm only asking if you've seen him. Spectacles shot back, how would we know, and you're getting mad. Drooping Fringe and Spectacles bickered back and forth, unaware that the person they were looking for was standing just a few meters away. Things were about to get complicated. Unable to hear clearly, the Viscount watched them argue and thought to himself, maybe there are more people involved. But he suddenly remembered what Drooping Fringe had just said. Viscount was offering a large reward to find this person. Spectacles answered, no, that's why I'm asking, who is this kid? Drooping Fringe replied coldly, if I knew, would I be out looking like this? It seems that kid is an extraordinary genius. Suddenly, Drooping Fringe's gaze caught on something. At that moment, Day was wondering, who is the Viscount looking for? Could it be me? The person Drooping Fringe saw was a youth of about 15, black hair and blue eyes. He called out loudly, wait. Day and Drooping Fringe were face to face, eyes meeting. He didn't hesitate to press close to Day to inspect him. Day softly asked, what's wrong? In Drooping Fringe's head, he was checking the described traits. Blue eyes, white hair, found it, it's definitely him. After examining carefully, Drooping Fringe excitedly turned to the people behind him. Hey, tell the guild I found the kid. Then he smiled at Day. Hey kid, I'm not a stranger, I work for the News Guild. Before he finished, Day cut in, already knowing the Viscount was searching, and agreed immediately. Got it, I'll go with you. Seeing this, kid showed no fear at all. Drooping Fringe was a bit surprised and asked casually, didn't your mother teach you not to go with strangers? Day looked at him strangely and replied, would a stranger ask things like that? Then I won't go, seeing Drooping Fringe's bewildered face. Day also explained, you said the Viscount is looking for me, right? I need to check on the patient's condition, so I'll come along. He answered, I'll call a carriage, wait a moment. So the two set off. Day, curious now, asked, hey, can I ask you a few things? Drooping Fringe, sitting in the carriage, asked back, what do you mean by the patient you mentioned? You mean the sick people at the Viscount's place? Day didn't know how to explain it simply, and nodded hesitantly. Suddenly Day's expression grew darker. I want to know what they're doing too. Seeing the 15-year-old's expression sent a chill down Drooping Fringe's spine. He thought, isn't this kid a little crazy? They fell silent, and after a while the carriage stopped. We're here, let's go. Day hopped down excitedly, but his smile faded when a young man shouted a welcome. All the maids and servants bowed at once and greeted, Holy One, welcome Holy One. They lined up on both sides and bowed 90 degrees. Day was bewildered. You people are calling me the Holy One. After receiving the special treatment, Day felt awkward before the lavish spread laid out in front of him. I'm not the saint you're looking for. The Viscount slammed his hand on the table and shouted. How can you say that about yourself? His face was deeply moved, mingled with admiration as he clutched his chest. You saved my life, not just my family. Then the Viscount exclaimed emotionally, you have blessed a sinner like me, there's no way you're not a saint. Day, seeing his emotions swing wildly, felt dizzy. It was just medicine, how can I explain this? Suddenly a soft voice, Lord Day. The Viscount's wife was also overjoyed to see him. We cannot ignore the fact that you brought this family back to life. Then she called her young daughter. That's right, Alicia, come and greet him. Von Alicia took a deep breath, stepped out in a sweet puffed dress, cheeks flushed. Sir, allow me to thank you for saving my father. Day was a little surprised, glanced at her, thinking to himself, Alicia saw her benefactor. Day didn't hold back a sarcastic jab. Weren't you the one who wondered why you brought me here? She awkwardly answered yes. Hearing that, the Viscount was stunned and began to scold, Alicia, I thought I raised you better than that. I always told you to apologize whenever you did something wrong. Seeing her reprimanded, Day found it beyond belief. The Viscount bellowed, now quickly beg for forgiveness for what you've done. Finally realizing his joke had gone too far, Day was embarrassed. No need, it was just a joke. He frowned, scratched his head awkwardly. Why is everyone behaving like this? I told you I'm not a saint. As if remembering something, he looked aside and asked the maid who assisted in the surgery, where is the person who came with me? She widened her eyes and answered honestly, I'm not sure, he seemed to be in a big hurry. Meanwhile, Drooping Fringe was running off somewhere at full speed, astonished. He still doubted that silver-haired kid from earlier, thinking, is that kid really a saint? At that moment, Drooping Fringe broke into a sly smile. This could be important news. It must be reported to the guild. With that thought, he dashed off. Back with the Viscount's family and Day, he was still reeling from how they treated him. I suppose nothing bad will happen, right? The maid prepared a pot of hot tea and poured it into a cup. Is the food to your taste? Yes, everything is delicious. He kept acting awkward in Day's presence. We prepared a lot to ensure you enjoy the meal. I'm glad you like it. Day lifted the teacup, steam rising. I can't imagine anything better than this. Hearing that, the Viscount reassured him. I'm grateful for that. There's nothing to worry about, for you will enjoy such meals every day in the Holy Nation. Shifting from a tone of gratitude to talk of life in the Holy Nation. Day stared blankly. What do you mean? He widened his eyes. You haven't been informed. Then smiled and explained. I heard a delegation from the Holy Nation has arrived, ready to take you back. The news hit his nerves. Day slammed the table and demanded, who's coming to take whom, and how did they know I was here? The Viscount replied cautiously, we heard the Pope himself received a message. Day's confusion deepened. He went pale and asked, what message made him need me? The Viscount replied softly about that, and then began to tell some things about the Holy Nation. The Holy Nation is a country blessed by the gods. When necessary, the gods send messages to the nation's holy ones. He asked curiously, can the gods communicate directly with humans? The Viscount, not entirely sure, replied, communicate? Not exactly. More precisely, they leave signs or send dreams. I've heard that those suspected of being holy ones have an aura of light following them. If recognized as a holy one, they'd stand apart from others. Is he the new Holy One? How radiant, Day thought. Why is there light anyway? Still shocked, Day continued asking, so what will happen to me? The Viscount, ignoring his expression, answered excitedly, you will go to the Holy Nation. Congratulations, Day. Day froze as the congratulatory words struck him like a blow to the head. That night at Day's house, Snail looked at her husband. He's probably too exhausted to leave the room. Io replied worriedly, it's best to let him rest. Day lay sprawled on the bed, feeling as if his soul wanted to leave his body. The message from the Holy Nation. He buried his face and cried, soaking the sheets. That night the moon was calm, but inside, Day was screaming, I only wanted to live a comfortable second life in this fantasy world. The next day at Sulia Palace. Along the luxurious palace corridor, whispers could be heard. Do you know who the person from the private residence is? No, who is it? A maid opened her bowl of gossip. I heard it's a holy one from the Holy Nation jur. The other voice, a little surprised, a holy one coming to our kingdom. The two walked on, curious. I don't know what she's like. I heard she was blessed from a very young age. I've heard that too. The rumored Holy One was described as having waist-length hair and eyes that sparkled like rubies. The other added, they say she's so beautiful it's like a beam of light always shines on her. Really, I'm so curious. If we're lucky, do you think we might meet her? That would be wonderful. From then on, the topic of the Holy One gradually became palace gossip. After the two left, inside a room the curtain was drawn back. A soft voice called, Miss, may I come in? The long-haired girl replied, yes, come in. The door opened slightly and a shoe with a cross motif appeared. Thank you, sir, the banquet is about to begin. The girl was a little annoyed. They really won't let anyone rest. The young man bowed with hands clasped. If you could prepare. The girl answered, I understand, I'll depart in a little while. Suddenly she paused as if remembering something. Ah, that's right. That elegant bearing and distant gaze were precisely the Holy One the two servants had mentioned. Ariel, the Holy One of the Holy Nation jur. She looked at the young man who had just spoken. What news do you have about the Holy One I asked about? He replied, ah, yes, I have good news. He then draped a white cloth over her shoulder and whispered something. The corner of Ariel's mouth lifted slightly, and her face brightened even more. She thought to herself, finally you've appeared. Someone she had waited a long time for, someone who could understand her. A normal morning at Day's small house. But Day was not normal, his face hollow and gaunt. Spending all day with his head in his hands, gloomily sitting at the table. I've tried so hard but still can't come up with anything. If the Holy Empire catches me, it's over. Thinking about having to wear white silk and strap a livestream lamp to my head made Day feel suffocated. This second life was supposed to be peaceful, but now it's harder than the first. I'll have to kneel and pray to a god I don't even know the face of for the rest of my life. He couldn't help but scream in panic. No, you can't. Snail, seeing this, curiously asked, Day, what's wrong, son? He looked at his parents, wondering whether he should tell the whole family to run away. But thinking it through, commoners can't stand against the royal family. Even if they run, there's nowhere truly safe. He clenched his fists and slammed the table. No matter how we try to run, the Holy Empire will chase us to the end. Seeing Day's behavior grow stranger, Snail anxiously ran over. You've been acting odd since last night. What's going on? Day's eyes darted, half wanting to speak, half not, thinking about the royal family coming to arrest him. Then suddenly bolted outside, only managing to throw Snail a sentence as he left. Be back here right away. Watching his retreating back, Snail and Io looked at each other. Something must have happened to him. Scene change. In a peaceful land, a voice rang out. So is this information true? Two men stood on the city wall talking. That kid is the one the Holy Empire has turned the place upside down to find. Maidu looked at the paper the other held and repeated the two words, Holy One. The paper showed an abstract sketch of Day's face. The man was doubtful, while Maidu stared with a serious look. You know, you're the first person I've given this information to. The slanted-hair man grinned. Of course, I've already sold this information to the Holy Empire. Now we just need to find where this saint lives. They continued to discuss. I've sent people to search the city's outskirts since he seems to come from a low background. He's probably there. The slanted-hair man made a money gesture. Unlike us, everyone else blindly searches around this village. That's why high-quality information is important. It saves time. Maidu glanced elsewhere. As agreed, I'll return when the Holy Empire pays the fee. He looked toward the distant forest. The slanted-hair man asked curiously, what are you thinking about? He pointed to a faraway glint of light. Have you investigated that forest yet? The slanted-hair man was surprised. You investigated that area too? He replied absent-mindedly, that's why I mentioned it. Wouldn't that place be convenient for the saint to hide? An image of an elf with a bow flashed in the slanted-hair man's mind, and he was filled with fear. No way, if he hid there the saint would be killed. Everyone knows they hate humans. He nodded in agreement. You have a point. They looked toward the forest again, thinking, there's no way he's in there, right? But no one expected that inside the quiet forest, filled with sunlight and fairy dust, a figure with silver hair was strolling about. I hope I'll come up with something clever while walking. As he walked, he pondered but couldn't think of any way to escape those people. At that moment a thought flashed through his mind. Is running away the only option? The nascent idea was snuffed out by day. So does that mean I'll have to flee for my whole life? I don't like that at all. Choosing a flat stone to sit on, Day sighed and tried to cool his head. Suddenly his pupils contracted, a cold shiver ran down his spine, and he immediately sprang up into a defensive stance. Deep within the forest, where there was no light, something was approaching. He frowned and guessed, has the Holy Empire arrived so early? But waiting yielded no sign of anything. Day sat down again, thinking, I can't sense any presence anymore. Suddenly a sound came from another direction, catching his attention. He ran over, stood before a large tree trunk, and then a voice suddenly rang out, a human. Day was quite surprised, nerves taut. The voice sounded again, little human, what are you doing here? Doubt arose in Day's mind. What is this, a forest spirit or what? He forced a wry smile and softly replied, I just wanted to rest a little. The tree was not polite and brusquely drove him off. Then go, human, this is our territory. Day sat back on the stone, exhaling, fine, I'll go, just let me sit here a moment. But the voice rang out again, louder, I said go, go now. He felt annoyed and puzzled by the voice coming from the big tree. But having already trespassed, as a reasonable person he stood to leave. First the Holy Empire, now this, no one lets me be at peace. He pointed at the tree, hey, I'll leave right now, okay? Exactly as you said, but show me your face first. But his childish threat had no effect at all. True to his stubborn title, Day the Silver-Headed decided to sit down. Fine, I'll just sit here, see, it's nothing. The tree grew angrier, get out right now. He didn't even bother to hide his disdain and flopped fully onto the ground, not caring. From behind the trunk a shadow peeked and issued a warning, don't say I didn't warn you, human child. He couldn't care less. If you refuse to listen, that's your problem. You think you have the right to drive me away while denying me a look at you. Once again the forest answered with silence. When suddenly a streak of energy flew in from somewhere, a girl preparing to attack him. Time seemed to freeze at the dangerous moment. He cast mana, defending against her strike. A pair of green feet touched down on the ground. At this point Day was satisfied to confront the one who drove him off. He thought inwardly, damn, I didn't expect that thing to attack so suddenly. A few sparks of amusement shone in his eyes. If his mana hadn't been active, he'd be done for. Suddenly he widened his eyes in disbelief at what stood before him. A slender arm holding a bow and arrow, and long pointed ears. Before him now stood a humanoid girl, but her ears were strikingly different, an elf. Facing an elf, Day felt no fear, only curiosity. Are there fair folk here? Looking at her hand, her mana was flaring. You blocked my attack. Clenching her hand, she voiced her guess. You're not an ordinary person, are you? Hearing that, Day laughed as if fortunate, which made the elf look disgusted. Yeah, not exactly. She began to make a hand sign. A source of mana concentrated and shot toward Day. She growled, you can't stay here. Seeing the situation turn dangerous, Day was forced to activate counter mana. The two mana sources collided, creating a great explosion. Sent both flying. From the blast impact, Fia was a bit stunned. Seeing Day unhurt, she couldn't hide her surprise. Is he okay? Fia began to doubt Day's origin. Impossible, a higher race. Hearing that, Day repeated blankly, wait, what, a higher race? Fia then pointed at his face and said loudly, I've reconsidered. Human, come with me, I'll let you stay in this forest. But Day didn't seem pleased. He pointed back and forced a smile. It's fine, I have to go back now anyway. However, Fia was stubborn. Refusing wasn't easy. We respect strength, that's the law of the Grandin Forest Elves. I'll invite you to our village. I'll invite you to our village. He found this rather interesting. There's an elf village in the forest. Looking at the girl and recalling her offer, Day hesitated. Although she attacked me first, she doesn't seem like a bad forest elf. After thinking, Day decided, all right, but you have to promise not to attack me again. Deeper in the forest, the vegetation here was lush. Day trailed after Fia, only now remembering to ask her name. She answered coldly. I am Paya from the Grandin Forest tribe. He looked up and bit his finger. Fia, your name is beautiful. Suddenly Paya got flustered, spun around and glared at him like a bullet. What? In an instant she turned away, her cheeks flushed. Well, it's not that pretty, though. Day could only smile awkwardly and scratch his head. Anyway, my name is Day. At that moment Paya announced, we're at the village. Receiving no warm response, he still trailed along. After walking a bit, Day's eyes brightened and his face flushed with surprise. Before him was a village with wooden houses in the trees. Day wondered, is this an elf village? It was truly eye-opening. Wherever he went he gaped, looking around. So they really live in the forest? I've never been in a forest before. Suddenly Day noticed several pairs of eyes watching him. They murmured, that human, why is there a human here? The chatter even mentioned Fia. Fia brought back a human, why did Fia bring a human? Walking through an unfamiliar village under scrutinizing stares, he thought inwardly they were already thinking about defending themselves. But then a short blonde-haired girl called out loudly, Fia, you're back. Fia responded brusquely, who's this human kid? An assistant. Fia didn't hesitate to claim him. His abilities are decent, so I brought him back. Watching as other elves crowded around to question him, S felt a bit embarrassed. She whispered into Fia's ear, saying that an assistant should be able to protect himself, and Fia surely understood Syl's thoughts. She began to recount how she met Day. At first I thought the same. I tried to chase him away but couldn't. He's stronger than I expected. Hearing this, Syl was slightly surprised and asked for clarification. Your attack was ineffective, impossible, or maybe? Fia cut in. She glanced at Day blending with the others and replied, I tried to verify if he was a higher race, but he's not. Syl eyed Day scrutinizingly and blurted two words, really? Then Paya switched topics, so what if he's not? At that, the two of them simultaneously looked up at the treetop house. It was a house that was always kept shut. Silly said softly, he's still not up. Fia replied, still not up. Got it. At that moment, C remembered an important thing to mention. Right, the elder is looking for you. Fia answered, I'll go at once. Then she turned and called, let's go, Day. He ran over immediately. I knew the elves would be wary of an outsider like me, but it shouldn't be too serious, right? Fia frowned in annoyance. Who else do you think brought you back, huh? Following Fia's retreating figure, he silently understood. I see, you mean you're someone reliable here, right? Then Fia led Day to a large house. She knocked a few times and then announced to those inside. Elder Fia is here. The door opened to reveal a fairly young woman. She smiled, come in, I've been waiting, just come in. Saying that, the elder stepped back to make room for Fia and Day to enter. Seeing the elder's pale expression, Fia asked, Elder, are you all right? She replied, of course. Suddenly the elder's gaze met Day's eyes. She asked, is the boy a human? Fia didn't hide it and answered frankly, yes, I brought him here because he seems strong enough to be an assistant. Compared to what Fia had first said about being an assistant, Day felt something was off and raised his hand to object. No, wait, hold on, I never said I'd be an assistant or anything, did I? After a while, the elder set down a glass of red liquid. Fia sat beside him trying to persuade Day to sell himself to capital. Do it, you'll gain a lot. First, you can come and go from the village freely and you'll be considered a friend of the elves. The elder looked at the two with a teasing expression, seeming quite pleased. Day helplessly explained, no, I mean I don't need those things. Suddenly the elder interrupted, Fia, I called you here because there's something to discuss. Keep it secret from the other elves, okay? Fia was quite surprised, knowing it was important. Her expression turned serious, yes. Then she looked at Day, you human boy, could you step outside? Day hesitated but then went outside to wait. He leaned against the outer railing and sighed, come in and then get kicked out again, how annoying. Looking at the elf village scene, he thought to himself, the holy of the empire or an assistant of the elf tribe, neither choice looks good. Day grimaced and sighed, my life really is full of ups and downs. Back at Sulia Palace somewhere else, any news of the holy? The other replied, your servants apologize. Two young men clasped their hands and knelt, saying there is still no news, sir. A woman's voice rang coldly, searching for the holy is the Lord's wish. Iriel arrogantly questioned them, doesn't this prove you have been negligent in searching for him? Harshly reprimanded, the two men sobbed, no, we will do our best. She spoke sharply, all out of strength. A gloomy atmosphere enveloped Princess Iriel's chamber. There was still no news and despite having tried their best with no results, it proved they were useless. The two of them pleaded with trembling voices, please, Give us more time, we will definitely find him. Seeing their earnest attitude, Ariel felt she had achieved her goal. She agreed, but with a condition. Fine, I will trust you one more time, but I am not as patient as the Lord. I expect you to keep your promise. Saying that, Ariel turned and left. No one knew what the two of them had been discussing inside, but suddenly Fia's voice rang out loudly. What do you mean? Elder Era died because of mana. The elder sighed, folding her hands solemnly across her chest. Her breath has ended. She was cursed, almost at death's door. After that I saw she did not awaken. Fia's eyes widened, shock was plain on her face. A moment later, the elder's room door opened. Fia stepped out in a sullen mood, leaning on the railing and sighing. Day watched with some curiosity. Since earlier Fia had not spoken a word, she only glanced around, then looked back toward the high house with a sad gaze and sighed again. Day asked, is the person in that house sick? Fia whispered, she is truly ill. Suddenly Fia realized something and jumped up. Wait, you heard all that? Day calmly, sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. He looked back at the treehouse and involuntarily made a small sound. Fia smiled sadly. You're worried, a human like you worrying about elves, we're different species. Day looked up and replied, you're right, we're different. How can one understand another species when one hasn't even understood oneself? But that doesn't mean I can't care for them. Who I choose to care for is my business, regardless of their race. Day's bearing at that moment wasn't like a 15-year-old boy's, but like a dependable young man. His words made Fia stir for a moment. Inside the small house of the elf village, Fia kept gazing at Day. Even while he drank tea, her eyes seemed adorned with roses and hearts. Looking at Day's silver hair made Fia's maiden heart skip a beat. Realizing something was off about herself, she hurriedly clutched her head and questioned herself, what's wrong with me? Day turned and said, Fia, I have something to ask you. She blushed and stammered, go ahead and ask. About that elf Era, you said she was dead, right? Day tried once more, boldly asking, can I help her? Those words surprised Fia. Day explained, I want to heal the sick. It doesn't matter if they belong to another race. Fia frowned suspiciously. Do you think you have the ability to do that? Day bowed his head. I'm not sure, but even so I want to do my best to help that elf. Fia glanced at him, her brows nearly meeting. Your words are not at all believable. Day was silent. Then suddenly a mana blade appeared in his hand. The strange action startled Fia. She immediately stepped back and drew her sword defensively. What is that? Day didn't explain, he just gripped the mana tip and drove it straight into his thigh. Blood spurted, he was in so much pain his face twisted. Gah, Nana. Fia panicked, what do you think you're doing? She rushed over to check the puncture in his thigh, anxiously asking, what should I do? But Day had already begun using mana, reciting a healing incantation. Light spread, filling the room. Fia's stunned mana is gathering on its own. All the mana he had used to stab himself immediately drew back into Day's thigh. The huge hole was slowly closing. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain. Outside, the other Fae felt that overwhelming surge of mana. What's happening? What kind of mana is that so strong? After a while, the healing process was complete. The wound vanished as if it had never existed. Fia stammered, the wound, it's healed. She looked at Day with utter shock. Day stood up and said, if anyone in this world can help the elf tribe, then that person would certainly be me. Fia ran to ask the elder for permission but was flatly refused. I will not allow it. Fia lost her composure. Why? It's disrespectful to Elder Era's reputation. The village's honor is extremely important and this person is Elder Era. Even with good intentions, the elder remained firm, using methods of unknown origin. I cannot permit it. Fia continued to plead, but we really want to save her. The elder raised a hand to cut her off. No more words, go home. Her gaze was icy cold. Fia could only bow her head silently, sorrowful. Day stood beside her, face blank, thinking, what good is reverence if it means letting someone die? The sun tilted westward, golden light spreading over the branches and leaves. Fia murmured, sorry, we failed. I thought we could help. Day comforted her, it's okay, there's always a way. Hearing that, Fia felt a bit better. Day smiled, can I continue touring the village? Fia recovered her mood, of course you may stay, it seems the other Fae have accepted you too. Day smiled, thank you, but I need to step out for a bit later. Fia widened her eyes, really? Yes, I have a few things to take care of. Fia couldn't hold him back, if that's the case, I have no way. Day waved, I'll return tomorrow, don't be disappointed. Fia's face darkened immediately, who said I'm disappointed? Hurry up, I've changed my mind now. Day jumped and bolted, yes, see you tomorrow. Fia watched his retreating figure and unconsciously smiled. Day followed the morning trail. But as soon as he was out of Fia's sight, he immediately turned onto a different path. His pace quickened. From the treetop, Day looked down at the house that was always shut. He already had a plan. A shaft of golden light radiated from the roof. Day frowned. I can't just stand by and watch a patient die. He boldly grabbed the doorknob and pushed it open. Inside was a forest full of flowers and grasses. Day was astonished. It's so vast here. He approached the second door and opened it. The pupils immediately contracted. In the middle of the room, someone lay motionless. A beautiful face and platinum hair, like a sleeping princess in the woods. A pure white dress draped over the girl's body, her long legs hidden beneath the sheer fabric. Day whispered, "That elf, Era." Day froze for a few seconds, then had to slap his cheek to wake himself. Calm down, don't lose control in front of a patient. Regaining his composure, Day gently took her hand, brought his face close to Era to check her breathing, then quickly noted, her pulse and breathing are normal. Then he had to check something else. Day changed how he held Era's hand. His hand emitted a green light as he frowned, considering using mana to inspect her internals. Mana formed into a network, and Day examined it intently. After checking, he frowned slightly. The body has no problems. Could it be a fate-related death? Impossible. He felt frustrated and helpless, muttering that he couldn't believe he couldn't do anything for this patient. I must study the diseases of this world more. At that moment, a dark aura suddenly appeared, weaving through the air. Day's gaze paused as he sensed it. Wait, he glanced at Era, wondering what's that smell. Without hesitation, Day gently turned her over, and was shocked to see hideously purple pressure sores and ulcers on her back. Day's expression was a mix of anger and disbelief. Had they never examined her body all this time? Is this what you call reverence? Ridiculous. He began thinking of how to deal with it. In front of Day now was a pool of water, and in his hand was a bowl made from a leaf. Day bent down and scooped a bowl full of water, chanting a spell to purify the water for treatment. He thought to himself that using healing magic on her right away would be dangerous. Then, while reciting a hand sanitation spell, he calculated that disinfection had to be done step by step. Day's hand was dipped into the water and then slowly brought near Era's back. In his mind, he thought, Elder Era is highly revered, even with good intentions using an unknown method. I can't allow that to happen to the chieftain. As he worked, Day's face was full of worry, hoping they wouldn't say anything about him touching their sacred one. Yet he couldn't help feeling pained as he looked at her blood-stained, ulcerated back. Day exhaled in anger, thinking, they did nothing to save her, abandoning her like this. They have no right to criticize me. Then he began to treat her carefully. Day worked silently and diligently until the sun set, then looked up and murmured, "It's dusk." He shook out the white cloth in his hand, glanced back at Era's back, thinking, before I can find the real cause, this is all I can do for now. Tomorrow I'll have to check again. The next day, in another place, a voice called out, "Holy Maiden, where are you?" A few soldiers of the Holy Kingdom reported anxiously, "We'll have news from the search team soon. They're combing the entire empire. The only question is time." Uriel braced herself, frowning as she asked, "How long will it take you to understand? I told you I don't have much patience." She made her displeasure clear. "Are you testing my patience?" The two others panicked and explained, "It's not like that, please spare us." But Uriel curtly waved them off as she stood. "Forget it, I no longer trust you." "I'll act myself, prepare to go," she ordered. Meanwhile, Day wiped his sweat and exhaled. He looked at Era's back, which was much improved now. The ulcers had responded well. In about a week they should be healed. After that, time flew by. I secretly entered Era's house to treat her. First, I'd clean her with sterilized water, then I'd help relax her contracted muscles. The rest of the time, I studied the books in her library to learn more. He brought a book and sat beside Era, exclaiming, "Did she draw this? It's terrible." No matter how I tried to speak to her, there was no response. Still, I kept talking to Era about what I'd seen on the way here, what had happened with Fia, even the smallest thoughts in my head I told her. And so a month passed. One day, like any other, Day gently opened the door and softly greeted, "Era, I'm here again." He smiled and added, "Fia's off today. I just had tea with her before coming." But the atmosphere around Era felt a bit different. Day immediately became unsettled and quickly ran to her side. Day observed Era with worry and noted, her breathing is growing weaker. The woman before him was increasingly unable to hold on. Her breath was gradually running out. Day panicked, leaning over Era and anxiously said, "What do I do now? I didn't expect this." He glanced around, trying to find a way to help Era, who was surrounded by a faint aura, and muttered, "Where's the oxygen mask?" Then Day suddenly remembered he wasn't in his old world anymore. His hand clenched as he bitterly exclaimed, "Right, this isn't a hospital." He gritted his teeth, almost shouting in helplessness, "The only thing I can do now is nothing." Then Day's gaze returned to the chieftain. The woman lying motionless suddenly worsened. Day frantically grabbed her shoulders and shook her hard, shouting, "Era, you mustn't die, wake up, Era." His eyes widened with fury. A barrage of questions filled him about Era's condition. Why, where's the problem? No external wounds, no poisoning, vital organs functioning. So why is this happening? Era's mouth parted slightly. She struggled to breathe, and that made Day even more worried. He muttered, "There must be at least some way to help her." Immediately his eyes widened as he thought of one possible option. Day looked at his hands, silently asking, "Can I use a healing spell?" But Day still worried about unforeseen consequences. Could Era withstand the force of his mana? Those thoughts made him laugh bitterly, mocking himself. He reminded himself and gradually resolved to save her. "I risked my life to learn medicine to save people. Now, in this moment, I can think of no option other than betting the patient's life." Day clenched his fist and firmly said 2 words, "All right." After speaking, he closed his eyes. His hand began to glow as he poured out all his divine power. "I have to try every possible way." Magic circles appeared, forming a rather large formation above Era's head. Images of the matrix and the runic weaving formed in Day's mind, and swirling light began to converge. This amazed the nearby villagers. All eyes turned to Day with a flurry of questions. That mana power, didn't it appear last time too? Day directed the light toward Era, his expression utterly focused as he strained and pleaded. "Era, my trusted one, please hold on." Then the incantation was called as the dazzling light shot forth. Who? An anomaly appeared from Era's body. Lights began to surround her and lifted Era up under Day's control. The light formed into a sphere of power that enveloped her. The curious crowd drew closer, whispering and raising their voices. What's happening? Seeing the light Day had created. Among them, Paya gasped and looked up. Could it be? She immediately ran to the scene, thinking as she ran, this boy still hasn't given up on Era. Since when? Different thoughts surged through Paya's mind, mixed with shame. A human like Day is trying his hardest, while my own people, the entire elven race, what are we doing? The door was quickly flung open. Paya shouted his name when she saw Day treating Day. The light continued to move, and Day remained completely focused. A cry escaped as Day's body neared its limit. Still, he tried to urge himself on a little longer. Then Day stopped, though doubt still lingered in his mind. Is it done yet? Both Day and Fia fixed their eyes on the cocoon of power surrounding Era, each thinking of Era and her plea. Era's whole body was lifted, even higher than Fia. But unfortunately, Fia was thrown by Day's power, slammed into the wall, and cried out in pain. The caster himself, Day, was no better off. He hit the ground with a staggering thud. Yet Day's gaze never left Era for a moment. She looked completely healthier than before, and then slowly regained consciousness. Day swallowed the pain, smiled faintly, and softly called Era. That was also the last word he could utter before losing consciousness. In the blackness, his own murmured voice rang out, "Where am I?" He felt everything around him like it was submerged in water. Then he nodded comfortably and even greedily wished for a little more rest. Suddenly, a voice sounded, faintly recognized as Uz. "Let me remind you, the species I protect." Day wanted to argue, but Era was the one who, his vision blurred. He saw Era talking to someone else, and she was even trying to do several unacceptable things to her own body. Day murmured in astonishment, "Era, whose voice is that?" She declared sternly, "I don't want to hear it anymore. You abandoned me for 20 years. This boy is the only one who chose to help me." Uz's voice rang out, "Funny, isn't it? The one who saved me at the last moment isn't the one who constantly worshipped me, but this tiny human." Day let himself drift in the current of thoughts and reflect. Her voice was so gentle he felt like melting into it. Then he sprang back to the real world with a strangled scream. Day shot up from the soft bed, then looked at his hands, moved them slightly, and observed, was that a dream? A voice from somewhere made Day turn. "Human, are you calling me?" Before him, Era was smiling gently. She replied softly, "I'm here." Day was so moved that his eyebrows nearly met. He softly called Era. He stretched, then suddenly hugged him, making Day blush awkwardly as he explained, "The picture you saw in the book. I drew it when I was bored, so don't pay it any mind." He stammered the question, though he already knew the answer. "Did you hear what I said?" Era leaned her face close to his, smiled softly, and confirmed, "Of course, I heard everything." A tear suddenly welled at the corner of Day's eye. Seeing that, Era couldn't help but ask, "Why are you crying?" Before he could say more, Era spoke, "Thank you. You're the only one who agreed to care for me at the end of my life. If you had abandoned me, we probably wouldn't have met like this. She tilted her head and continued, come to think of it, I still don't know your name. He smiled politely and said, my name is Day. Era fell silent for a moment, pondering the name, then smiled gently, it's a lovely name. In the house bathed in the green light of the foliage, Day's silhouette was lost in thought. He glanced over and said, Era, now that you're awake, shouldn't we go outside? The other fairy clans are worried about you. She wasn't very keen on the idea. Running her fingers through her hair, she said, they didn't bother to see me even once in 20 years. What right do they have to worry now? Her gaze grew sharper as she challenged him back. Do you think I'll forgive so quickly? Her attitude surprised Day, and he asked curiously, when did you regain consciousness? The question puzzled Era. You mean I regained consciousness on my own? Day continued to wonder, how could you be conscious while you were unconscious like that? Era explained concisely, from the start I always remained conscious. I knew everything that happened during that time. The answer left Day astonished. He widened his eyes and asked again, so you mean you truly remained conscious while unconscious? Then he exclaimed, so you've just been lying there, unable to move your body all this time, only able to wait. Day kept looking at her, and moved, cried out as he took her hand, you fought so bravely and you've won. Era immediately wore a bewildered, embarrassed expression, and tears began to fall from the corners of her eyes. She reflected, I hate humans, from the beginning. Humankind started all this, and to this day they show no remorse. That's why I hate them so much. Day's hand gently took hers, cherishing, and enveloping it in healing light. In the hazy vision, Era realized her body was no longer harmed. Was it simply fate? Impossible. She thought, this person said he would heal me, he touched me. At first I was furious, but he's different from those others. She wondered intensely, you don't expect anything in return. You gave me all the love and effort I've never received before. She recalled what Day had once said, before coming here I had tea with Sister Fia for a bit. It seems the fairy clans prefer things a little sweet, don't they? And he concluded, the fairy clan's tea is a bit sweeter than his taste. Day continued, recounting that the book mentioned a flower called Daihurho. It was planted in the front yard right. Era couldn't help but admit. Yes, now that I think about it, you're very much like those flowers, self-sacrificing and smiling. That's the meaning of the Daihurho flower. Every word he said played back in Era's mind. Did Grandma draw this? It's so ugly. The remark embarrassed her. She knew her drawing wasn't good, but hearing it said so bluntly still felt odd. Day turned to look at her, then smiled so gently that Era greedily wished. If I could hear you say that just once in return, I would want for nothing more. Many tears fell in succession. Then Era broke down, crying with overwhelming gratitude. He didn't stop her, and Era silently thought. Thank you, Day. She hugged him tightly, words left unsaid expressed through the embrace. Thank you for not abandoning me. Under the canopy of green forest, Day murmured in wonder. It's still faint. Era and he ran together. She led the way and replied. I can sense them. After a moment, Era announced. They're almost here. Day felt puzzled. How many people could there be? Would they really bring an entire army just to capture him? When they arrived, the scene before them shocked both of them. Large bloodstains were splattered everywhere. Ahead, Fia was surrounded by the Holy Knight's army. Day couldn't contain his tension and shouted. Fia, her body badly wounded, she stood there panting. Day shoved past the knights and rushed over. Step aside. Fia, won't you listen to me? Those people noticed his distinguishing features, white hair, young man, and they immediately guessed Day was the same. Then the knights all dropped to one knee and cried in unison. We request an audience with the saint. A pair of bloodstained legs stepped forward and spoke. It is an honor to meet you, saint. The owner of that voice, covered in blood, introduced herself. I am the holy maiden Ariel Bell Ice. Please forgive my disheveled appearance. Day frowned and looked past her without answering. The elf chief couldn't let it pass. Her face darkened as she stepped forward. Day immediately sensed trouble and hesitantly called. Era. The knights panicked and shouted at her. Halt, you may not approach the holy maiden. Era merely warned. If you don't want to die, don't stand in my way. The knights were stunned by that one line. What? Era and Day moved to support Fia, asking as they did. Are you all right? Fia gritted her teeth against the pain and rasped. We must stop them. We can't let them reach the village, must stop them. But her injuries were too severe. As she spoke, she gradually collapsed, causing Day and Era to panic. Day studied the wounds on her body, thinking, her shoulder is soaked in blood. Could she have endured this alone? He took Fia's arm and lifted it gently. I'll set the bone, it will hurt a little. At the same time, Ariel intervened. Saint, come with me to the Holy Kingdom. Tens of thousands of people await that day. Day paid no mind. He tore the sleeve of his shirt with his teeth and used it to bandage the wound on Fia's abdomen. Uriel continued calmly, the deity has guided you, so you will achieve accomplishments worthy of that guidance. It is time to step into the world. Hearing this, Day was stunned and frowned. What? He didn't understand and asked again, accomplishments? What accomplishments are you talking about now? Uriel replied nonchalantly, yes, following the will of heaven isn't an achievement. The great work we've always pursued is only just beginning. Day couldn't believe it and repeated the words, the great work. He looked at Fia, seeing her body covered in wounds, and asked, is this situation a significant matter for you? Hearing that, Uriel revealed a cold expression. I made a request, but they refused. You cannot back down from the will of the gods. The reward has already been offered. I warned them with force, yet they still didn't listen, did they? She acted as if nothing major had happened and added, besides, she's not dead yet. Day snapped back irritably, so if not permitted, you'll invade their territory on your own and use force to seize me. Uriel, holding to her ideals, answered coldly, there is no other way. Seeing they were not aligned, Day calmly asked again, do you think I'll obediently come along? Uriel's gaze turned icy. She replied in a deep, threatening tone, I don't wish to use force on the saint. At that moment, Era, who had been silent, couldn't contain her fury and spoke up, I'm left speechless. You cause chaos in our territory and dare use force against my benefactor. Then I'll show you that proud power once, she declared coldly. Hearing this, Uriel showed disdain. An elf dares threaten our holy kingdom. Era scowled and stepped closer. Whether my words are courage or arrogance, you'll see soon. Uriel brushed it off and replied evasively, you'll know by experiencing it firsthand. The group of knights, displeased, lunged at Era. How dare you act like this toward the saint? How dare you speak presumptuously to your superiors? And in an instant, several of their swords shattered simultaneously. The knights were terrified. Era was now filled with killing intent, staring at them. Want to try more. They froze before her aura, then wisely fell to their knees at Era's feet, weeping and begging, please spare us. She showed contempt and taunted, is this the power you pride yourselves on? Can greatness be achieved with people like you? Uriel looked at them as if they were garbage. They are the easily shaken faithful. Era snorted, such stubbornness. It seems the gods only granted you strength while you remain unaware that you are bound by the deity. Feeling insulted, Uriel wasted no time and began to condense power into her fist, then charged toward Era, too noisy. She did nothing but quietly chant a holding spell. Immediately, a series of iron chains appeared from nowhere and bound Uriel tightly, rendering her unable to move. Era put a hand on her hip and sneered, how does it feel that the holy kingdom's power you trust is being restrained by an elf? Uriel remained stubborn and replied, the power of the Holy Kingdom is more than that. At all costs, we will bring the saint back to the Holy Kingdom, even if only the body remains. Then a resounding slap echoed. One of Uriel's cheeks flushed red, while Era warned in a low voice, don't speak carelessly with that filthy mouth. The identity of the saint you want to take is more important to me than my own life. Even right now, Uriel still seemed unable to believe what had just happened. Era closed in, threatening, want to wipe your disgusting kingdom off the map. At that moment, Day cut in, enough. He calmly repeated, I told you I will go to the Holy Kingdom. Uriel showed a look of delight, but before she could rejoice, Day added coldly, however, I have conditions. Uriel was thrown off by that. Conditions? Day raised a finger and began to list them while she remained bound by Era's spell. First, I will not become a saint just for God. I will become a saint by my own will, and I will stop whenever I choose. Uriel protested, stop being a saint, that's impossible. Before she could finish, Day raised another finger. Second, if something like this happens again, I don't know what will happen. Uriel asked what would happen. He nonchalantly, I told you I don't know. Maybe I'll leave the Holy Kingdom and try becoming the saint of an enemy nation. Such a shocking declaration spoken so lightly left Uriel stunned. What? A saint betraying God? She reassured herself, it's fine, if he betrays God, all holy magic will be lost. Then she asked, anything else? Day folded his arms calmly, of course there is. He raised another finger. Third, grant me access to all the libraries in the Holy Kingdom. This pleased Uriel, but Day continued. Fourth, Uriel shouted still more. He went on, you must pay me wages for the time I work. And you'll provide clothing, food, and housing, right? Uriel grew wary. Pay me? Pay with what did you mean? Day made a coin gesture. Are you really asking that? Of course it'll be paid with money. This greediness left Uriel speechless. The knights couldn't stand his arrogance and interjected, that's enough, holy maiden. The saint holds an immensely noble status, why accept these terms? Another chimed in, indeed, and no saint would beg for money. Certainly God must be mistaken. That remark hit Uriel's nerve. Her murderous intent flared as she hissed, how dare you say God is mistaken? The two knights, terrified, clung to each other. Please, we beg your forgiveness. Afterwards, she reconsidered. Of the conditions you've listed, the first I'm not sure about, but I'll accept all the others. Day exhaled indifferently, but the first condition is the most important one. Uriel was left helpless by Day's attitude. Oh my god. Then he returned to the previous topic and mentioned the fifth. Day reached toward Fia resting by the tree and requested, apologize to me. He added formally, then turned to Chief Era and demanded, release her. She was reluctant but complied. Uriel was released and hesitantly said, I cannot apologize. She wore an awkward expression. Please understand, I'm only the holy maiden, merely carrying out God's orders. Day sighed, not willing to let it go easily. Sympathize with you. Then who was the one earlier who refused to take the elves' perspective and threaten them first? Uriel, defending herself, I had to do that to bring you along because you ignored all our previous requests. Before she could finish, Day concluded, so in the end you can't apologize, can you? Uriel closed her eyes and confirmed firmly, yes. To avoid escalating things, she added an explanation. If simply apologizing would suffice, I could apologize as much as needed, but our responsibility is immense. A single word could enrage God. Hearing this, Day had nothing more to say. Is that so? Fine. He turned away and said coldly, then end it. Go tell your God to find someone else to be the saint. These words left Uriel stunned. Then Day glanced at the elf chief. Let's go, Era. We still need to treat Fia. She agreed almost immediately. All right. The two of them ignored the holy maiden and went to the tree to help Fia stand up. Seeing that, Uriel hesitated, reaching out as if to stop them. Wait. Uriel placed a hand on her chest and said, though I cannot apologize, I will do my utmost to help her. So please be generous. Day cut her off in a cold tone. No one needs your help. I just want you to say sorry. Saying that, he left her, leaving Uriel looking as if she was about to cry. Day carried Fia on his back and called to Era, let's go. Sunset descended through the tree canopy in the forest, and Era's voice sounded with concern. Will she really be all right? It's not too late. If you say yes, they'll welcome you immediately. Day stood by his principles and replied, I have no regrets. If it's a place full of people who won't apologize for what they've done, I'd rather not go. Hearing that, Era wondered, why would you sacrifice yourself for people who aren't even your own kind? He curled a lip and answered, I just want to do what I want. Era continued, what is it you want? Day didn't hide it, a happy life. This answer made Era more puzzled. Then shouldn't you all the more become a saint? Day did not deny it. Being a saint is fine, but even small matters bother me. If someone is sick, help them. Living like that isn't bad, right? He smiled and looked up at the sky. Living in a small place that makes me happy is enough to satisfy me. Era also smiled, resigned to him. You're truly special. The sun gradually sank, the sky painted in orange-red. Uriel stood motionless as if pondering something. She recalled Day's words before leaving, then end it. Go tell your God to find someone else to be the saint. Uriel fell into silent contemplation. Suddenly a knight approached and said, Holy maiden, there must be some mistake, right? Otherwise, how could someone like that become a saint? She repeated softly, a mistake. Then she began removing her armor, shocking the knight. Holy maiden, what are you doing? Uriel ordered, you all return first. I will visit the elf village. In the village deep within the forest, two young elven guards on duty began gossiping. Will Fia be all right? Hard to say. Fia's condition is very serious. Suddenly, the two noticed someone approaching from a distance. They immediately went on alert, took a fighting stance. Stop right there, that human is not allowed to proceed. Uriel raised both hands and hurriedly explained, I'm not here to fight, I'm here to see the saint you revere. The two young elves were surprised. Our village has a saint, though doubtful. They still resolutely refused to let Uriel into the village. Even if what you say is true, we cannot let a human enter this village. Leave at once. If you take one more step, we'll treat it as an attack. Uriel had to yield, then at least help me deliver a message to that saint that I've come to see them. The elf with the bow immediately refused. I won't agree, go back. She lowered herself again, then please let me wait here. I swear I will not harm you. The two exchanged glances and softened a bit. All right, wait over there in the distance. If you step any closer, we'll attack. Uriel bowed gratefully. Thank you, I won't come near, don't worry. They stared at her small figure as she walked away. After Uriel disappeared, one guessed, the saint, could it be Day? Finding a suitable spot, Uriel set her luggage down, took off her shoes, and began to pray. The mana within her was activated, and holy golden light enveloped Uriel. Meanwhile, one young elf, sensing something was wrong, said, First let's inform Day. The other nodded in agreement. The sun was sinking toward the horizon. It was a deep sunset in the elf village. Fia had been treated thoroughly for her wounds, but she remained in a deep coma. Day sighed and rolled his shoulders. The danger has passed, now we can breathe easier. Suddenly a voice called from outside the door. Day, are you in there? He went to open the door. What's the matter? one of the two elven guards reported, "There's someone outside the village here to see you." Day was startled. "They've come snooping all the way here." He hurriedly asked, "How many people? 10 or 20? The other replied, "Ha, it's only one person." Day paused, suspicious. Only one person. A while later, the sky had darkened. He went over and told the elves, "I'm coming." They cried out, "Day." A young man ran over cheerfully and slapped him on the shoulder. "Where did the party host run off to?" Day forced a smile. "You all still have fun without me." He quickly returned to the main point. "Is someone here to see me?" The young man pointed in a direction. "Over there." Day looked and saw Ariel still in the same praying position since she arrived, which made him click his tongue. What is she doing all the way out here? He then stepped closer to her and called out, "Hey, holy maiden, did you come to find me?" Ariel did not answer. An elf approached and reported, "It's useless. She's been doing that since sunset, at least 3 hours by now." Day was at a loss for words, watched Ariel and thought to himself, "She'll probably stand up soon, should I wait?" In the end, Day did wait. He waited through the whole night. At dawn the next day, Ariel exhaled, cracking her stiff neck from keeping the same position for over 10 hours. At the same time, Day's tired voice rang out, "How can anyone pray all day like that?" Ariel opened her eyes. The first image she saw was Day's impatient face. She was astonished, still dazed, her lips stammering. "Saint, Saint," Day interrupted. "Saint what? What are you doing here?" Ariel dared not look him in the eye and averted her face. "I have something to tell you." Day asked, "Here to apologize?" She awkwardly said, "I can't apologize, but instead I want to do something to show my sincerity here." Hearing that, Day put on a face of contempt. "So you refused to apologize and came all the way here to salvage the situation, is that it?" Ariel panicked, bracing herself on the ground and trying to stand to explain. "I don't mean that." Day, irritated by the fuss, said, "So how do you intend to show your sincerity?" She replied shyly, "From my standpoint, I cannot say sorry, but I will stay here and bear guilt until all the elves forgive me." Day soberly analyzed, "If you're absent, the holy nation will come looking for you, right? Then the two sides would fight again. Have you thought about that?" Ariel answered softly, "Of course, I prayed for that reason. Because I reported to God, the holy nation won't be able to come for me at will." Her words sounded hard to believe. Day looked skeptical. "So how am I supposed to trust you?" She sighed, "There's no way for you to trust me." "But if I were lying, wouldn't the elves here be able to tell? Besides, the number of people here could overwhelm me in an instant." Day stared at her, wondering, to believe or not to believe. After thinking for a while, he chose to trust her. "All right, but I have one condition. Do as you wish, but whatever you do has nothing to do with me. If the elves force you to return, you must go." Ariel hoped for nothing more and said happily, "Okay, thank you very much." He turned his back and left, and Ariel stammered after him, "Hey, Saint." Day, annoyed, turned back. "What now?" She hesitated, looking embarrassed. "The thing is, where around here can I bathe?" Day gritted his teeth and thought, "She's really troublesome." A fresh new day with gentle sunlight shone over the forest. After tending to her personal hygiene, Ariel resumed praying, holy power covering her entire body. Nearby, two elves stood watching. "From yesterday until today, she's been kneeling like that all day. Doesn't kneeling like that make you sore?" Just then they spotted someone approaching and exclaimed, "Day, you're home." He, carrying a bag over his shoulder, replied, "Yes, thanks for your hard work." One elf asked further, "But at this moment, are you just going to leave that girl like that?" He also looked toward Ariel, wondering to himself, what kind of deity could make her go to such lengths? Dusk fell on the small house at the edge of the forest. Day opened the door and stepped in, calling out, "I'm home." He was met by his parents handing out dog food. Eo, seeing Day, greeted him indifferently. "Oh, Day's back." He suppressed a laugh. "You two keep doing whatever you're doing." His father wanted to explain something, but Day called repeatedly, "Day, Day, Day," then slammed the door to his room. Day tossed his bag onto the floor, collapsed full length onto the bed and complained, "I'm exhausted, I have no spirit left." Suddenly he fell into thought, recalling earlier events. When Era had bluntly advised, "Day, I hope you'll go to the holy nation." While he was tending Paya, she suddenly asked, "What did you say?" She put her hands on her hips, serious. "You're the younger brother of an EU staff member, so I can't handle this alone. I'm glad you care about us, but seizing opportunities when they come is very important." Back in the present, he stared at the ceiling, thinking, Era is right. I promised to go to the holy nation to study medicine and cure all the diseases untreatable here. After coming to terms with it, Day sat up abruptly, pulled a book from his bag and told himself, "That's right, exactly." With renewed determination, he knew he couldn't miss this chance. A moment later, a shriek rang out in the house. What did you just say?" Along with that, a pot fell straight to the floor. The speaker was Sen. She asked incredulously, "You're going to become a saint?" And you say you absolutely must go to the holy nation. Day fell silent, not hiding the truth. Yes, that's right, I'm leaving. Sen, who knew her son well, teared up and covered her mouth. Are you serious? Io, also unbelieving, asked, when will you go? Will you come back? Only then did Day speak. I'm planning to leave tomorrow. I can't say when I'll return, but I will come back. Sen buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Impossible. Io hugged his wife and added, a saint has to live in the holy nation for life. Day. He reassured them once more, I will definitely return. Suddenly Sen rushed over and hugged her son. Why do you suddenly want to be a saint? Io tried to be strong and comfort his wife. Honey, he's about to leave. Why are you crying? Don't make him feel worse. Despite his words, tears streamed down his face. Take good care of mother until I return. You don't need to worry. Just go and come back. Day also had tears in his eyes. He smiled brightly and replied, I'll take care of my health. Seeing him fawn, his father teased. Didn't cry as a child, now crying as an adult. Day snapped back, I'm not crying and you shouldn't say that. The next morning in the elf village, Iriel sat on the ground sighing, her stomach growling violently. She clutching her belly and groaned once, so hungry that her mood turned gloomy. Earlier, Day had shown her that the grass was edible, saying, just eat it. Then he waved and walked away, not forgetting to add, self-reliance is happiness, okay? Iriel looked at the strange tree Day had pointed to, which gave off a murky aura, and wondered, eat that. She plucked a sprig to try. A sticky sap ran all over her hands. Showed clear disgust, but in the end, too hungry to care, she stuffed it into her mouth. It was both spicy and bitter, and her stomach began to protest violently, breaking out in a cold sweat as she clutched her belly. The two elf guards who witnessed it turned pale. Is she eating it raw? Humans must undergo penance. Do they really have to do that? As for Iriel, all she could scream inwardly was, water, water. Fortunately, there was a pond nearby, and she ran to it as if her life depended on it, burying her face in gulping mouthfuls. Day's astonished expression flashed through her mind, and she lamented, Saint, what on earth did you make me do? Under the clear sky, Iriel stretched out on the ground and exhaled, weary, wondering, maybe I should give up here and go back. Thinking that, she told herself, no, this is God's trial, I must be patient. Just then a figure approached. Hey Saintess, get up. Day looked down and said, get ready, we're heading to the holy nation. Hearing that, Iriel was stunned. What? Day repeated, I said, stand up, we're starting for the holy empire. She stammered, so you forgive me. He immediately doused her hopes, of course not. Iriel, eyes wet, said, I know. He sighed and reminded her, prepare to go first. I need to say my goodbyes before we leave. At that moment, a female elf approached. Day, you're back. Day hurriedly replied, yes, how's Fia? She unexpectedly announced, we were actually waiting for you. I heard Paya just woke up, go visit her. Day rushed toward the house calling out, Paya. He joyfully flung the door open and called again, Paya. She was surprised, and Day breathed a sigh of relief. You're awake, I'm so glad. Are you fully recovered? Paya replied softly, fortunately yes. Just then, Era entered. It's glad to see you recovered quicker than expected. Day smiled and asked, you came because you were worried about Paya too? Era crossed her arms, cool on the outside but warm within, and replied, I'm merely fulfilling the duties of clan leader, caring for the other fairies. Paya, flustered, tried to sit up. Clan leader Era, I apologize. Before she could finish, Era raised a hand to stop her. It's fine, don't move, you haven't fully healed. Era noticed the bag on Day's back and stated, it seems you've changed your mind. Day didn't hide it and calmly replied, yes, I'll go to the Holy Empire. This opportunity may never come again. I think I should follow your advice and do everything I can. Era lowered her eyes and gave a small smile. That's right, then leave early. Those words stunned Fia. She let out a loud ah. Realizing her rudeness, she lowered her voice and glanced at the clan leader. Ah, I'm sorry for shouting in front of you, clan leader Era. She replied calmly, it's fine, don't worry about me. Day interjected, yeah, if you have any more questions, ask me. The two fairies scowled in unison. Era said sternly, are you mocking me? Fia didn't let it pass. How dare you? Day bowed his head apologetically. Sorry. Paya returned to the main point. Where are you going? I thought you were going to stay here. Don't tell me you're going to follow those people to the Holy Empire. Day rubbed his chin and confirmed, I'm not following them. I was already planning to go. But you're right, I'll be going to the Holy Empire. She asked how long. Day hesitated, I'm not sure, but probably a few years. Hearing that, Paya went blank, which confused him. Then she smiled happily and relaxed. All right, I worried for nothing. Travel safely. Paya's attitude left him a little disappointed. Oh, okay, I'll come back. He scratched his head with an awkward smile, thinking to himself that he'd forgotten Forest Fae have a different sense of time. Suddenly, Era spoke, is that all you have to say? Can we talk for a bit? Day was puzzled but agreed, yes. He left, see you later. At Era's house, she expressionless said, I want to give you this, please accept it. Hearing that, Day brightened, you want to give me something, what is it? Era instructed, put out your hand. He obeyed and placed his hand on her palm, like this. Era pressed her other hand onto the back of his hand and began chanting, This is my sign, proof that I will always accompany you. A green light flashed where their hands met. When Era withdrew her hand, Day stared at the back of his hand, where a sigil had appeared without him noticing. This is. Era placed a hand on her chest and confidently admitted, it's mine. Day looked at the sigil and then at her, his head full of question marks. Mouth agape as he guessed. Is this some contract forcing humans to treat the forest fae as masters? I've heard they use this to enslave humans to death. Seeing his abstract expression, Era spoke to stop his wandering thoughts. Whatever you're thinking, it's not that, it's just my mark, don't worry about it. Day, unbelieving, repeated a mark. Era explained, yes, it's a sigil made from my magic, placed on you by me, like I'm giving a piece of myself as a gift to you. I think humans call it possession. Her words made him a bit embarrassed. Possession, huh? She smiled gently and looked at him fondly. I will always accompany you. I hope it will protect you on your journey. Day examined the sigil on the back of his hand closely, then suddenly smirked. He beamed brightly and gratefully said, thank you, I will see you again soon. After that, dusk fell. The sun was nearly half set. Uriel grinned the whole way. Seeing her so elated, Day put on a judging expression. Finally, he couldn't help asking, why are you so happy? Uriel answered, thrilled, of course I'm happy. How could I not be when I'm finally returning to the Lord? Day was speechless, thinking, living in the wild must be tough for her. She urged, let's go, Saint Day. He glanced toward the forest and replied, yeah, let's go. He lifted his eyes to the sky. The sun gradually slipped behind the treetops. A light breeze brushed his face. Suddenly Uriel spoke, do you have any regrets? Day kept looking into the distance and replied firmly, I'll come back here too. He returned to the old topic, and the condition I mentioned is still in place. Right. Uriel winked and gestured. I should probably say more about your first condition, but the others are fine. And of course Day's expression was full of disdain. After that, he stopped haggling and turned to leave. Day thought to himself, this will be a long journey. The two set out. Before long it was dusk. They arrived at a small town. Holding the map, Day wondered, where is this? Earlier Uriel said there was a place she needed to visit before the sanctuary. Previously, Uriel had held the map and directed him. First, we'll go to the capital, not the sanctuary. Day, puzzled, repeated, the capital? She pointed at the map and began to explain, exactly because our companions are in the capital Celia. We'll go to Celia and join them. Then, finally, everyone will head to the sanctuary together. She sighed wistfully, then we'll have to travel with passion. Day wondered, why is she so excited about that? He rubbed his chin and thought, it takes about 3 days to reach the capital. Using mana to travel quickly would take about 1 day. Not very satisfying, it's like taking a useless detour. If you want to travel all day, you need to stretch a bit. Watching him swing his legs back and forth made Uriel curious. What are you doing? She grabbed the horse's reins and asked in disbelief, are you seriously planning to run? Day made a face as if her question were strange and answered innocently. Wouldn't running be faster? Uriel, exasperated, could only exclaim, oh my god. She tried to explain, even using my divine power to travel like that would be a risky trial. And of course, that's impossible with the mana of a saint who hasn't yet obtained divine power. Day closed his eyes to calculate. If it were his mana path, there'd be no reason he couldn't do it. It would even be faster than riding. But she bought that horse for comfort and I'd be disrespecting it. After realizing this, he nonchalantly said, so what, we don't need to sweat much, that's perfect. Uriel climbed onto the horse and said, I only bought it as a backup for emergencies, okay? If you feel uncomfortable traveling together then, before she could finish, he cut in, anyway, I don't know how to ride a horse, so I can't go alone. With that, he jumped up. Uriel urged the horse onward. The two rode the same horse on the road. Day felt a bit excited inside. Let's go to Celia. After a while, the sky darkened. Uriel said, let's stop here for the night. Day volunteered, I'll cook, wait a moment. Saying that, he pointed a finger and quietly chanted to spark a flame. Immediately, a fire flared up on the stone hearth. Uriel asked in astonishment, activate magic with only a trigger word? You're much better than others your age. Are you the commander of the second squad or something? Day replied while opening his bag, of course not. He hung the pot over the fire, pointed at it, and chanted water. Uriel watched each motion and thought, the bowls are ready, next the ingredients. Suddenly, among the things Day pulled out was one that horrified her. Uriel stared at the plant that had tormented her stomach and shouted, wait, don't put that in. But it was too late. He tossed it into the pot and said casually, what's wrong? It's delicious. Try it. Uriel, still wary, said, that spicy bitter taste is supposed to be good. Day understood, exhaled, then smiled and asked, have you eaten the leaves of this herb before or only the root? Uriel hesitated that, of course, he answered, originally people only eat the root of this herb. Its leaves are much more nutritious. But they're too bitter and spicy to swallow. Ariel seemed enlightened but still stunned. No, then what now? Day handed the bowl of soup to Ariel. Relax your face. Try it once, it has a unique flavor. She took it with both hands and thanked him. Visually it looked ordinary, steam rising thickly. Ariel looked at the bowl and thought, it smells good, it already looks tasty. She scooped a small spoonful, brought it to her lips and sipped. Immediately her face showed amazement as she thought, this is delicious. Then she quickly finished the bowl. Day, puzzled, why eat so fast? There are a lot of things that surprised me even more than expected. He warned, eating like that can upset your stomach, take it slow. She obediently replied, yes. After a while, the two stood on a cliff. Before them lay a vast city. Ariel exclaimed, look, that's the capital Celia. They rode their horse into the city. Day looked around and assessed. The market is fairly large, this is definitely a capital. Ariel asked, it's completely different from the outskirts, right? Do you want to go sightseeing? We've arrived at the capital, there will be a troop stationed here. Day thought to himself, this is capital Celia. He wondered, it's my first time here, will there be any problems? When they reached the city gate, a guard approached. Miss, you've arrived. He inquired, could you tell us the identity of the person riding behind you? Ariel smiled and answered tersely, the saint. She slyly turned to him and asked, right saint? He didn't argue and declared plainly, the saint, I'm Day. The guard was surprised, sorry we didn't know, please enter. They walked in on a red carpet into the capital. A priest was waiting and greeted her warmly. Miss, the long journey here must have been tiring. Ariel said, my mission in capital Celia is complete. Tomorrow I will leave and go to the sanctuary. Contact our homeland and I'll return with the saint. The priest bowed, I understand. I will notify the sanctuary and make preparations to depart. After they left, she turned and said, then the saint should rest first. I'll show you where to stay. Day opened the door and entered the assigned room. Inside was spacious and grand, leaving him impressed. Day stood at the doorway thinking, isn't this 5-star hotel level? I was too busy to visit before. Now here I am. Ariel called from behind, satisfied. He replied excitedly, I'll spend a good amount if it's to my liking. Hearing that, Ariel relaxed and turned. The saint needs rest too. I'm going out. Day set down his bag and asked, tomorrow we'll go to the sanctuary, right? Ariel looked at him, didn't answer, but flashed a crafty smile. See you tomorrow. Day watched her retreating figure, puzzled. What does that mean? He was bewildered, something felt off. Then he sat on the bed and sighed softly. He changed into a sleeping robe and stretched out. Tomorrow I'll really go to the sanctuary, Day thought to himself. The sanctuary where I'll live in the future. But what is it like? Before he could think it through, he dozed off. The next morning, Day changed his clothes. A voice came from outside the door. Saint, are you awake? Still a bit sleepy, he went out. I'm ready, let's go. Ariel curled her lip. If you're ready, then let's depart. She had changed into formal ceremonial attire and smiled to greet the king. Day replied calmly, then quickly go greet the king. Suddenly he realized something was wrong. He asked again, where did you say you're going? To see whom? Ariel looked at him with bright eyes. To meet the king of the Celia capital. He cried out in his head, why do I have to? He accepted the order but still complained a bit. If that's the case, you should have told me in advance. If you talked to me last night then. Ariel smiled placidly. No hurry, it's mainly to say thank you and report that you'll be leaving. Day scratched his head awkwardly. No, I wouldn't do that. If I meet the king, I need to prepare mentally manners, protocol, and so on. She expressed sincere concern and explained, I'm not saying that to spare the saint from losing sleep and causing difficulties in the upcoming schedule. Is there a problem? However, he wasn't moved and grew more suspicious, thinking, she's being kind, so I'm a bit distrustful, this is a mess. After that, the two actually arrived at the palace and were invited in. You've had a hard time. Someone asked him, are you the newly chosen saint? Day, sweating, looked ahead and answered, yes. The person seated on the throne before him was King Diogator of Celia. He wondered, is this the king of the Celia capital? Welcome, you both must be tired from the long journey, someone added. Thank you for allowing us to rest before meeting you, they replied. Below, Ariel bowed in salutation to him. Day remained standing like a statue. At that moment, Ariel signaled him. The saint seemed to understand Ariel's cue and let out an "oh." Then Day quickly bowed in greeting. Ariel sighed while he grit his teeth and glared at her angrily, thinking, you didn't tell me that on purpose just to embarrass me, didn't you? Diogator then spoke with a solemn expression, raise your heads. They answered in unison, thank you, your majesty. Then he began, I've heard that today you will return to the holy nation. The two responded together, yes, that's correct. Ariel, with a confident expression, replied, the reason we can return to the holy nation is entirely thanks to your grace. My lord, allow me to represent the holy nation in offering our sincere thanks. Hearing that, Diogator waved his hand and laughed. I did nothing. The holy nation protected you on that journey. Ariel placed her hand on her chest to show gratitude. It was because you allowed us to stay in the kingdom of Sulia so we could safely find and return to the saint. We will certainly repay this debt to you." Hearing this, Diogeter looked curious and stroked his chin. You say you'll repay the debt. I'll keep your words in mind for whenever I need them." Then he continued, Speaking of which, are you the newly chosen saint?" Day seemed surprised and introduced himself. "Yes, my name is Day." Diogeter cast a probing glance over him, mentally nodding. "No matter how many times I try, I can't sense any mana flow at all." Looking at his body, he seemed to have been trained in swordsmanship. His expression grew thoughtful, thinking to himself, "Though I feared another saint might have appeared, it seems there's nothing to worry about with him. What a relief." After that he spoke, "I never expected to meet both a saint and a saintess at the same time. What an honor." Day was slightly surprised, while Iriel calmly replied, "Thank you, your majesty." Day frowned and turned to Iriel. "Lady Saintess, should we slowly head out now?" At that moment a voice began, "Then now I will." Right then, Diogeter suddenly interrupted. "Oh, Saintess Iriel, you said you would repay the debt, didn't you?" She was a bit surprised but answered composedly, "Yes, that's right. Is there something you need help with?" Diogeter hesitated, seemingly about that matter. A memory suddenly surged and he recounted, "To be honest, my cousin, the daughter of the Prince of Silos, is ill. Many clerics have seen her, but not only could they not cure her, they aren't even sure what disease she actually has. I hope you can repay us by visiting her, Iriel, could you?" Hearing that, Day stiffened inwardly, thinking, "What? There's no way I can say no." Day gritted his teeth and signaled Iriel, meaning, "We still have a long way to go, refuse quickly." Seeing this, she silently replied, "I understand." And finally she answered, "I could never refuse such a request, my lord." Hearing that, Day was completely shocked and spun to look at her. "What?" Diogeter, satisfied with that answer, said, "Thank you. I was rather worried, but with a saint by her side I'm sure you two will manage." "Thank you, Saintess Iriel." She forced a smile, her face dark. "This is not what I was thinking in my head." At that moment outside, Day complained, "Honestly, why does the route to the holy nation have to be so long?" Iriel had nothing to say. In this awkward situation, she could only offer a confident smile to ease things. She came up with an excuse to change Day's mind. "It's because you're now a member of the holy nation. You can come with me and learn how to use your sacred magic. In the long run, it'll be very useful for the whole world." Day frowned and replied, "Wouldn't it take longer if we detour to that prince's domain and then go straight to the holy nation?" She quickly answered Day, "That's true." After that, Day agreed with her, "Fine, whatever." Then he smiled gently at Iriel. He mentioned someone being ill, right? If we can help them, why not visit as soon as possible? Go wherever needed as long as we can help the patient. That's the true duty of a healer. At that moment elsewhere, the priest spoke up, "I'm sorry, Saintess." The priest's face showed some worry. "We have already notified the holy nation that we're on our way back, but if we say we're visiting the prince, then I cannot permit that. I'm sorry, Saintess." Iriel quickly explained, "That was the request of the king of Cilia. Please forgive me, but I was truly in a position where I could not refuse." Then the priest asked her again, "So what did the king promise in return?" Iriel replied, "He promised nothing. This is simply to repay the debt for allowing us to stay here." Hearing this, the priest sighed, "Then because he had sufficient reason to make that request, I think we have no other choice. I will contact the holy nation and inform them that we will return to the kingdom later than expected." Iriel felt guilty and replied, "Thank you for understanding me. We'll leave right away to save time." Day, displeased, put his hands on his hips and looked at the priest. On the road, Day pondered silently about how people had reacted to medicine when he witnessed it. "After my first patient was treated, their reaction was very, very surprising. I wonder how my second patient in this world will react." By now the sun was gradually setting. The priest suddenly spoke, "We'll stop here." He chose a convenient place to camp. At that moment, while Day was busy cooking something, a flurry of voices rose. "Hey, look over there, is that the saint?" The chatter continued, "Doesn't he look better looking than the rumors said? Go talk to him." Suddenly someone stepped up to Day, stammering, "Excuse me, saint." The person tucked back her hair, her face slightly flushed. "Do you need any help?" Day replied politely, "Oh no, I'm fine." Another girl approached excitedly and asked, "If you don't mind, could we sit next to you? We're just curious what you're doing." Occasionally surrounded by beauties, Day beamed and answered, "Sure, I don't mind at all. Please sit wherever you like, as long as you're comfortable." Hearing this, the two girls' little hearts raced. "Thank you, sir." The girls gathered around him. "What's this?" Day explained to them. "Oh, this is a plant that grows in the Fey forest." The sun sank ever lower. After a while, he escaped from the girls' grasp, scratched his head wearily, and thought, "Why are these kids so hyperactive? I couldn't get away from them. Then a voice rang out, drawing Day's attention back to the new saint. He's so young, do you think it's sensible to follow him? He's just a kid who does whatever he wants and even makes demands of the holy nation. One man replied, do you remember the time the saintess got slapped by a fae? Hidden behind a tree, Day heard this and grew furious. I get it, what kind of people are these? Do they think it's fine to badmouth others like that? The woman continued, we'll only know when we reach the holy nation whether he's just a puppet of the saint. Uriel appeared out of nowhere and said, what are you saying about me and the saint? Why don't you say it to my face? She gave a terrifying smile, a puppet of the saint. Or maybe I didn't hear you clearly. Her gaze turned eerie. May I ask why you're talking about me and the saint? I don't know about this, so why don't you continue your conversation? It seems like you have a lot more to say, don't you? Then both fell silent, not daring to speak. She continued, if you don't say anything now, I'll assume everything I've heard is true, and that's your stance. Then I can do whatever I want, right? The man from before answered awkwardly, about that, we thought reminding people of what the gods have done would be important. Uriel's look grew even more terrifying. What I have done has nothing to do with you. Did I tell you to go spreading that to everyone? You say you do it for me, but did I ever ask you to do that? At that moment, a priest stepped forward to cut in. Sweating profusely, Saintess, the children only made a mistake. They still have a lot to learn. They don't mean any harm to the saint. Please forgive them. Saying that, he shoved the man down. What are you doing? Apologize to the saintess at once. Uriel replied coldly, do you think an apology is enough? You dared to badmouth the saint behind their back, calling them a stupid child and even a useless puppet. And now you expect me to forgive them? Faced with her pressure, everyone was terrified. Uriel said sternly, the saint is the one chosen by God. To be rude to the saint is to be rude to God. That is called contempt. She continued, is a single sincere apology enough to resolve this? If you cannot give me a reason, then Day was still standing behind the tree listening to everything. Uriel finished coldly, I truly don't know what will happen next. The girl from before trembled and stammered, Saint Uriel, please forgive me. I shouldn't have said that about you. Uriel shouted upon hearing that, you're apologizing to the wrong person. You humiliated a saint chosen by God and you can't even apologize properly. She gritted her teeth and added, there are people who, even if they wanted to apologize, can no longer do so. Hearing that, Day felt heavy at heart. What did she just say? Was she talking about herself? He thought further, I know that bearing a weighty title like saint isn't easy for someone so young. That pressure wears a person down. Day gave a faint smile, that feeling, I understand it very well. In my previous life, I was called a genius surgical doctor. He sighed, why don't I go out? Thinking that, he spoke up, have you finished talking? He stepped out because he truly couldn't listen any longer. Everyone cried out in alarm, the saint. Day continued, so that's how people think of me. They think I'm a child and a puppet saint. The girl who had spoken ill of him flushed and stammered, that's not. The man beside her added, we just meant to say. Suddenly, Day said, on second thought, it's not wrong. If I do nothing, then I truly am a puppet. Uriel, unhappy, shouted, Saint, what do you mean? Why would you be a puppet? Day smiled and answered, think about it. I have no holy power. What can I do in the holy nation? Even if I was chosen by God, don't you think I'd make a perfect puppet? Isn't that what everyone is thinking? Hearing this, people looked at each other awkwardly. Uriel denied it. Of course not. Who would think that? God must have a reason for choosing you as the saint. Day retorted, wait, who said God chose me like that? I'm only saying that many people in the Holy Empire think so. He added, because they speak ill of me behind my back. Do you mind if I deal with them myself? Uriel replied, yes, do it. Day asked, if I want them punished, what will happen? Uriel answered, the first inquisitor will arrest them and execute them. Hearing the inquisitor mentioned, they begged in fear, sir, please forgive us, we spoke without thinking. Day glanced at them, then glanced toward the people behind and said, I'm sure there are many more joking about me, not just you, calling me a puppet, an arrogant child, or having no authority at all. He continued, I don't think those things are wrong. As you think, I'm still young. I have no faith, strength, ability, opinions, or connections with you. Day's gaze grew serious. That's why I will go to the Holy Empire for a few years to prove each and every one of you wrong. One baffled man asked, what do you mean? Another added, what do you want to prove? Day turned his back and clenched his fists. All those who slander me behind my back, I will make you regret it. I'll make those who disrespect me remember this moment. And as proof, as a promise for that day, I will not punish the people here. The two men were so moved they shed tears, sir. We are sorry, we should have thought before speaking. The girl beside her added, we will repent and learn from this mistake. We truly apologize. Day gave a slight smile. I hope you will regret this decision much more in the future. and to achieve that goal, I will do my utmost to restore the honor of the Holy Empire. The full, bright moon witnessed his words. I don't know how long that will take, it could be many years. But I will do everything to make you regret today. Hearing that, everyone admired Day. The atmosphere fell into an unusual silence. After a while, Day returned to where he was cooking. Ariel spoke, impressive speech. Seeing that, he called her name, Ariel. She squatted teasingly, to make them regret today, right? Day gritted his teeth and replied, keep teasing me. Suddenly, Ariel looked into the pot he was cooking. Isn't that the same stew as last time? He cheerfully answered, yeah, the priest even ate my share. After that, I'm quite hungry. Do you want some? It's better hot. Ariel smiled, please give me some. A sparkling meteor appeared in the sky. Ariel exclaimed, hey look, a shooting star. She beamed, it's been a long time since I saw the night sky. Do you think seeing a shooting star is a good omen? Day looked up, thinking to himself, shooting star. My name in my past life also meant shooting star. He closed his eyes to savor the moment, then opened them in wonder. In my homeland, if you make a wish on a shooting star, the wish will come true. Ariel asked in surprise, really? Then she clasped her hands to pray. He asked, puzzled, what are you doing? Are you really praying? Does the saintess believe in legends? The two of them sipped soup while looking at the starry sky. Ariel said, you remind me there's a legend in the Empire too. If you watch a shooting star with someone, you might die happily with them. Day asked, a happy death? Ariel immediately objected. Of course I don't believe it. How could death be happy? He nodded as well. I don't believe it either. A happy death, I wonder what that would feel like. The next day morning came, and everyone set out. Saintess, Saint, we can already see Silo's territory. They continued announcing that it seemed we would soon enter Silo's territory. The priest turned to ask the two, when we arrive, where should we go first? Ariel replied, since we're in a hurry, we must meet the dukes all at once. Then she gazed thoughtfully outside, as there wasn't much time. She continued, we'll treat them as quickly as possible and proceed to the Holy Empire immediately. If we arrive late for the baptism, it will be very complicated. At that moment, they had reached the duke's place. He looked at them. Welcome, I have been waiting for you too. When I heard about you, I kept anticipating your arrival. The Duke showed obvious joy. I cannot express how happy I am that you traveled so far for my daughter. Ariel solemnly replied to him, bringing God's blessing to the suffering is our holy duty, so please relax. Suddenly, the Duke's expression turned a bit anxious. I'm sorry to be abrupt, but could you please take a look at my daughter? I don't know what I would do if I lost her. It breaks my heart to see her struggle with illness. Ariel replied, I understand. We can examine the child's condition right away. He clasped his hands in joy and said, thank you very much. I will do anything if you can heal my daughter. Day glanced at Ariel and thought, even though she hasn't done anything yet, they already trust her like that. She must be great at being a saint and at being human too. By now, they were nearly at the girl's room mentioned. The maid gently opened the door and announced, Master Lerla the Saintess has arrived. The two, Ariel and Day, seemed surprised. Day looked at the girl's body, covered in red spots, and thought, half her body is covered in rashes. He began making judgments based on his experience. Red rashes? Could this be a severe case of HB-type dermatitis? They should have treated the girl before it got this bad. What have they been doing? Lerla hurriedly covered herself with a blanket, her face sorrowful. It's terrible, isn't it? At that moment, Ariel stepped up to the girl's side with a request. Lerla, may I have your hand? Lerla gently placed her small hand into hers. Ariel took the girl's hand with her other hand, soothingly. You must have been in a lot of pain. From now on, everything will be fine. Having said that, a stream of golden light surrounded Lerla. The dazzling light made the Duke shield his eyes. He exclaimed, amazing holy power. The light gradually softened. Lerla was so surprised she could only utter, huh. She raised her hand to look. Her hands were no longer red. My skin feels better. Seeing that hand, Lerla burst out, my hand is better. At that moment, Ariel also spoke. The treatment is complete. Turning to the Duke, she asked, you must have been worried. It's all right now. The Duke, on the verge of tears, my daughter, my daughter. Father and daughter embraced, overflowing with joy. Lerla, father. The Duke replied, thank God she's well again. He cried as he looked at Ariel, thank you so much. You truly are a saintess. My child has struggled with this illness for 8 years and I had completely given up. I will never forget this day. Ariel smiled gently. No need, this is also a blessing from God. From behind, Day watched what had just happened and marveled. At first, this illness seemed to require long-term treatment. It's unbelievable she cured it with just a touch. He curled a wry smile and wondered, do I really mean nothing in this world? Night fell. The Duke happily presided over the lavish feast before them. Now please eat to your fill. Though modest, I have done my best. Ariel politely replied, you need not do this, it's far too much. Thank you for the meal. Lord Hoppo then spoke, as rumored, I knew the saintess was outstanding, but rumors cannot capture your kindness. I wish to sincerely thank you for healing my sister. Uriel set down her wine glass and replied calmly, "It is my honor. I will certainly convey your gratitude to our Lord." Hearing this, Hoppo praised her. "You truly are the saintess of legend, so humble." Day beside her did not seem very pleased. The Duke, seeing this, asked with concern, "You haven't said much. Does the food not suit your taste?" Day forced a smile and answered, "Not at all. I was just thinking about something else. Sorry for troubling you." Uriel intervened to ease the situation. "The saint has many worries. Please do not be too concerned." Upon hearing this, the Duke replied, "If the saintess says so." At that moment, Uriel turned to Day and asked quietly, "Holy One, what's wrong? Is something odd?" He replied softly, "No, I'm just tired." Hearing that, Uriel continued, "Is that so? Since I've arranged for us to stay one night at the castle, make sure you rest well." Day's face showed slight awkwardness as he answered, "Oh." He fell into pensive thought, remembering how busy he was in his previous life. Why did I sweat and cry so much to become a doctor? Countless voices echoed in his head. Even though I was reborn with my old memories in this world, that knowledge is useless here. Then he asked himself, do I really have to forget Bitch Du Sung's past and live this new life only as Day? Just then a voice rang out, pulling Day from his thoughts. "Holy One, are you asleep?" Day remained silent and did not answer. Then Uriel continued, "Holy One, I don't know what's wrong, but please don't lose faith in yourself." She began to offer comforting words. "Everyone doubts themselves sometimes, right? I hope whatever is troubling you won't destroy what you've built so far." Rather than being anxious and exhausted like now, I truly think the stern, humorous side suits you better. Her words only made him more irritated. Day pressed his lips together, then sat up thinking, "Don't lose faith in yourself," she said. His gaze hardened. "That's right, even though I'm Day now, I'm also the former Dr. Bitch Du Sung. I just need to find something only I can do." Uriel outside continued, "What I want to say is, I just want you not to give up." No sooner had she finished than Day stood in front of her. He smiled, "Thanks, you've helped me a lot." Hearing this, Uriel replied, "What a relief." Suddenly, Day called her name, but Uriel asked confused. "Yes," Day continued, "is this the first time you've comforted someone?" That question angered Uriel. "You? What do you mean by that?" In Layla's room, the Duke's voice was full of outrage. "She was fine yesterday. Do you mean she's not completely cured?" Then he shouted, "Immediately summon the saintess here." At that moment, Uriel had already arrived. "What's the matter?" The Duke said sadly, "The symptoms have returned. Did your treatment fail?" Uriel quickly answered him, "The treatment process was completed. I'm not sure why the symptoms returned. I will treat Layla again." The Duke's eyes were heavy with pleading. "Please, we beg you." Suddenly Day called her back. "Wait, Uriel." She was surprised. Holy One." Layla's expression turned gloomy again. "Don't look." Day stepped closer to the girl. "Layla, may you give me your hand." The Duke judged inwardly. How can a newly appointed Holy One treat what even the saintess couldn't? Then he spoke. "I think it would be better to let the saintess." Day's gaze became serious. "If what I suspect is correct, I am the only one who can treat this girl's illness." At that remark, the Duke asked in puzzlement, "What do you mean by the only one?" Day replied to him, "No matter what treatment the saintess uses, it won't be effective. We can let the saintess treat her, and that will be fine for now. But after this, we'll leave. What will you do if the symptoms come back?" Hearing that, the Duke found it reasonable. Seeing this, Day continued, "What she needs now is not the saintess's treatment." He placed a hand on his chest, speaking with conviction, "She needs treatment from me." The Duke, somewhat worried, "But I've heard you have no holy magic. Exactly what do you intend to do?" Day answered him coldly, "My treatment doesn't require holy magic. I'll use all the information I know to get her through this illness. That's how I'll treat her." At that moment, Layla also spoke up. "Father, the Holy One is right. If we don't trust him, I don't think we have any other options." The Duke paused at the girl's words. Layla continued, "We've tried everything else. If there's a way to cure me of this condition, I want to put my trust in the Holy One." Hearing this, he finally relented. "All right, if that's what you want, you have my permission." He pleaded, "Please, please, save the girl, Holy One. From the bottom of my heart, I beg you." Day firmly replied, "I promise I will definitely cure the young lady." From the next day, I decided to investigate the cause of her skin condition. The first thing was hygiene, since that's the most basic step to becoming healthy. I checked everything, and when I saw they washed blankets, tablecloths, and clothes once a day, I could rule out cleanliness as the cause. The castle is also protected by a magical barrier, so external parasites were unlikely to be the cause. However, I noticed one issue. There was always one ingredient in her meals. It was wheat flour, not just bread. But even meat dishes were often coated with a layer of flour. Moreover, her condition flared up after meals. With these clues, I began to suspect. Wheat contains a protein gluten, which is insoluble. And her disease was dermatitis caused by gluten sensitivity, a form of skin allergy. treatment is not too difficult. Day wrestled with how to create treatments. Unfortunately, in this world, there were no useful medicines. Medicine was still undeveloped. I had to tell the maids that it would be very difficult to concoct remedies from unfamiliar plants. Even if it took time, the only thing I could do was change her diet. Day began to explain. From now on, remove everything I mentioned from her meals. In the boudoir, Lerla lay tiredly curled up in a blanket. A maid called to the girl. "My lady, Lerla," she answered softly. "Yes." Day, standing outside, called out, "My lady, this is Day. May I come in?" Lerla, hearing this, agreed. "Holy One, please come in." Day smiled and stepped in. "Sorry to bother you. I've come to check on your condition." He observed the rashes on Lerla and thought, the condition has worsened. It's definitely from her diet. Lerla replied listlessly. Then Day said, "I'll tell you some things you need to pay attention to." Lerla asked confusedly, "What did you say?" Day explained seriously, "That's right. From now on, I want you to avoid any foods containing wheat flour like bread, and even if you're itchy, try not to scratch." Lerla was surprised. "What, avoid bread too?" Day smiled and replied, "Yes, that's all I can do for you." The girl couldn't believe what she was hearing, thinking to herself, "No way, bread is my favorite. Is he lying, or should I call the guards?" After thinking, Lerla asked, "So you're not doing anything else? Can't you use magic to heal me?" Day smiled and replied, "What I told you is a method of treatment. And to prevent the condition from spreading," he added, "once a day we will have to drain all the blisters. I will do that myself because I also need to check your condition." Then Day stepped back, "So rest now. The most important thing is to maintain your health." Lerla wondered, "Will my condition improve if I stop eating bread? Does that make sense?" No sooner had Day left than he met Ariel at the door. She asked, "Holy One, how is her condition?" Day's expression was serious. "It's getting worse." Ariel worried, "I understand where you're coming from, but don't you think it's better if I treat her?" He answered, "You've treated her, but the symptoms returned. If you use your method again, it will just return." Ariel stubbornly refused, but Day emphasized, "Changing her diet will cure her." Ariel asked, "If that's the case, why didn't we do that from the start? I trust you very much, but the king does not, and you know we can't stay here any longer." Having said that, Day fell silent to think. She wasn't wrong. Ariel misread Day's glance and blushed. "Even if you look at me like that, there's nothing more I can do." Day clenched his fist, determined. "Right now, the important thing isn't whether I can cure Lerla, but how I will treat patients from now on." He said, "1 week, just give me 1 week. By then I'm sure I'll cure her." Ariel fell silent. The next day, a piercing scream rang out from Lerla's room. "I don't want to."
Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more awesome content.